The crack of the whip echoed through the dusty saloon as Cole Matthews slammed his fist on the poker table, watching his entire life crumble with the turn of a single card. "You lose, cowboy," Snake Wilson grinned, revealing gold teeth that glinted in the lamplight. "And according to our little agreement, you've got yourself a bride, whether you like it or not." The crowd erupted in cruel laughter as Cole's eyes found Selena Carter standing in the corner, her dark skin gleaming with sweat from the kitchen work, her proud chin lifted despite the humiliation about to unfold. Welcome to my story, friends. Stick around to see how a forced marriage born from a rigged bet became the greatest love story Cheyenne Creek ever witnessed. Drop a comment with your city below so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The Wyoming sun hung low and angry over Cheyenne Creek that September evening in 1885, painting the sky the color of dried blood. Cole Matthews had been riding since dawn, dust caking his throat, his bay mare shadow foam-flecked and weary beneath him. The cattle drive from Denver had taken 3 weeks longer than planned, and every muscle in his 32-year-old body screamed for rest. But rest wasn't what drew him toward the Golden Horseshoe Saloon like a moth to flame. It was the promise of whiskey and the dangerous allure of Lady Luck. "Should have gone straight home," he muttered to Shadow as he tied her to the hitching post, his calloused hands gentle despite his exhaustion. The mare nickered softly, as if agreeing with him. Cole's small ranch waited just 5 miles north, its modest cabin and 40 head of cattle representing everything he'd built since arriving in Wyoming territory 8 years ago. But the weight of $3,000 in his saddlebags, payment for the cattle he'd delivered, burned against his conscience like a brand. The saloon doors swung open before he could reach them, and out stumbled Jake Morrison, a fellow rancher Cole had known since his first days in Cheyenne Creek. Jake's face was pale beneath his weather-beaten tan, his eyes wild with something between rage and despair. "Cole," Jake grabbed his arm with trembling fingers. "Don't go in there, friend. Not tonight." "What's wrong with you, Jake? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse." Jake's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've seen the devil himself, and he's sitting at that corner table with a deck of cards and a smile that'd freeze hell over. Lost everything, Cole. My ranch, my horses, even Mary's wedding ring." His voice cracked on his wife's name. "Snake Wilson's in there with his crew and that banker Hawthorne. They're cleaning out every honest man who sits down." Cole studied his friend's haunted expression. Jake Morrison wasn't a man given to exaggeration or drink-induced hysteria. If anything, he was cautious to a fault, which made his current state all the more alarming. "Then I'll have a drink at the bar and be on my way," Cole said, though the promise rang hollow even to his own ears. The truth was, the money in his bags represented more than just payment. It was possibility. Enough to buy the Henderson spread that bordered his land, doubling his acreage, and finally making his operation large enough to compete with the bigger outfits. Jake's grip tightened. "You don't understand. They're not just taking money, they're taking dignity, making men agree to things, terrible things. Tom Bradley had to sign over his daughter as a housemaid to pay his debt, and that widow, Selena Carter, what about her?" Cole knew Selena by sight, though they'd never spoken. She worked in the saloon's kitchen, a tall, striking woman with skin dark as coffee and eyes that held a fierce pride despite her circumstances. Her husband had died 2 years back, leaving her with nothing but debt and a ramshackle homestead nobody wanted. Hawthorne's been trying to get her land for months. That little creek that runs through it feeds into the main water supply for the Eastern Valley. He's got plans, Cole. Big plans. And tonight? Jake shuddered. Tonight he's got her on the table as a prize. Any man who loses big enough has to marry her. Make it legal so Hawthorne can control the land through the husband. "That's not legal," Cole said flatly. "You can't force a woman to marry." "Can't you?" Jake laughed bitterly. "When the sheriff owes Hawthorne money? When the judge is his cousin? When every witness in that saloon is either bought or scared?" He released Cole's arm and stepped back. "I'm leaving tonight, taking Mary and heading back east. This town's rotting from the inside out, and I won't watch it take you too." Cole watched Jake stumble away into the gathering darkness, his friend's warnings echoing in his ears. The smart thing would be to mount Shadow and ride home. store his money safely, approach the Henderson spread in the morning with a clean offer. But something in him rebelled against the idea of running scared from Snake Wilson and his crowd. He'd faced down cattle rustlers, survived a Comanche raid, and built his ranch from nothing. He wouldn't be frightened off by a card sharp and a crooked banker. The saloon's interior assaulted his senses the moment he pushed through the doors, smoke thick as morning fog, the sour, sweet smell of spilled beer and unwashed bodies, the cacophony of drunken laughter and clinking glasses. But beneath it all ran an undercurrent of tension, like the air before a thunderstorm. Men huddled in small groups, shooting nervous glances toward the corner table where Snake Wilson held court. Cole had heard of Snake before he'd ever laid eyes on him. The man's reputation preceded him like a dark cloud, a professional gambler who'd worked the Mississippi riverboats before heading west, leaving a trail of ruined men and mysterious deaths in his wake. He was lean as a whip, with pale skin that never seemed to tan despite the prairie sun, and eyes the color of dirty ice. His thin fingers moved over the cards with an almost hypnotic grace, and his smile never quite reached those cold eyes. Beside Snake sat Jeremiah Hawthorne, and if Snake was a viper, Hawthorne was a bloated toad. The banker's massive bulk tested the limits of his expensive suit, his multiple chins wobbling as he laughed at something Snake whispered. Hawthorne had arrived in Cheyenne Creek 5 years ago with enough money to buy the bank and half the businesses in town. Since then, he'd been systematically acquiring land through foreclosure and intimidation, building what some called an empire and others called a stranglehold. Well, Snake's voice cut through the saloon noise like a blade through butter. If it isn't Cole Matthews, heard you just got back from Denver with your pockets full. Cole hadn't intended to approach the table, but something about the challenge in Snake's voice made him stop. Evening, Wilson. Join us, Hawthorne boomed, gesturing to an empty chair. We're just having a friendly game, small stakes. I'll pass. Now that's unfriendly. Snake's smile widened, revealing teeth too white and sharp. Man rides into town, pockets heavy with honest money, won't share a hand with his neighbors. Makes people wonder if he thinks he's too good for them. The saloon had gone quiet. Cole felt every eye upon him, waiting to see what he'd do. In the corner of his vision, he caught sight of Selena Carter emerging from the kitchen, a tray of glasses in her hands. She moved with careful grace, her face a mask of calm, but he noticed how her knuckles whitened as she gripped the tray. One hand, Cole heard himself say. Then I'm going home. The crowd exhaled collectively as Cole took the offered chair. Snake's fingers danced over the deck, shuffling with a showman's flair. 5-card draw. $100 ante. That's not small stakes? It is for a man who just sold 50 head of prime beef, Hawthorne chuckled, his small eyes glittering with greed. Unless Morrison was right and you're already scared. Cole placed 2 $50 bills on the table, his jaw tight. Deal. The first hand went to Snake with 3 queens over Cole's 2 pairs, the second to Hawthorne with a flush. By the third hand, Cole was down $500, and the whiskey Snake kept pouring had begun to blur the edges of his caution. You know what your problem is, Matthews? Snake said as he dealt the fourth hand. You're predictable. Every decision written on that honest face of yours must make it hard competing with men of vision like Mr. Hawthorne here. I do fine. Do you? Hawthorne leaned forward, his breath reeking of cigars and rot. That little ranch of yours barely scraping by? While men like me are building the future of Wyoming? At least I build instead of steal. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Snake's hands stilled on the cards. That's a dangerous accusation, friend. Is it an accusation if it's true? Hawthorne's face flushed purple, but Snake placed a restraining hand on the banker's arm. Tell you what, Matthews. Let's make this interesting, really interesting. You think we're thieves? Prove you're better. One hand, no limits. I don't have unlimited funds. No, but you have that $3,000 in your saddlebags. Snake's smile turned predatory. Oh, don't look surprised. Not much stays secret in a town this small. 3,000 against, let's say, 6,000 from us. You win, you double your money. Buy that Henderson spread you've been eyeing. Cole's hand instinctively moved to his gun, but he stopped himself. How did you, like I said, small town. So what'll it be? Take your beating like a man and slink home, or take a real chance at building that empire you dream about? The rational part of Cole's mind screamed at him to leave, but the whiskey had awakened something else: pride, ambition, or maybe just plain stupidity. And if I lose? Well, Hawthorne's grin widened impossibly. Then we'll have to discuss alternative payment, but a man like you won't lose, right? Not if we're the thieves you claim we are. Cole looked around the saloon. Every face watched him with a mixture of pity and morbid fascination. In the corner, Selina had stopped pretending to work, her dark eyes fixed on him with an expression he couldn't read. Warning? Resignation? Or something else entirely? Deal, Cole said. Snake's laugh was soft as silk and twice as dangerous. Oh, but first, let's make it official. Need to protect ourselves from accusations, you understand. He produced a piece of paper from his coat. Just a simple agreement. You lose, you pay the 6,000 or what? Or you accept an alternative arrangement of our choosing. Nothing illegal, of course. Just creative financing. Cole should have walked away, should have recognized the trap closing around him. But the whiskey and pride had him in their grip now. He signed the paper without reading it carefully, his signature bold and damning. Snake dealt the cards with elaborate slowness, each one sliding across the green felt with a whisper of destiny. Cole picked up his hand, keeping his face carefully neutral. 3 kings stared back at him. His heart hammered as he discarded 2 cards, hoping to improve his hand or at least maintain its strength. Snake and Hawthorne made their own discards, their faces unreadable as stone. The new cards slid toward Cole. He lifted them slowly, a 4th king and a worthless 3. 4 kings. It was almost impossible to beat. Betting starts with you, Matthews, Snake purred. All in. Cole pushed his money forward. 3,000. Call. Snake matched it without hesitation. And raise 3,000 more. Cole's mouth went dry. I don't have... That's what the agreement's for, Hawthorne reminded him. Unless you're folding. To fold now would mean losing the 3,000 already on the table. Cole looked at his 4 kings again. The odds of Snake having a better hand were astronomical. Call. Well then, Snake's smile could have curdled milk. Let's see what we have. Cole laid down his kings with barely controlled triumph. 4 kings. The saloon erupted in gasps and muttered oaths. For a moment, Cole thought he'd won. Then Snake began to laugh, a sound like grinding glass. Impressive, the gambler said. But not quite enough. He laid down his cards one by one. Straight flush. The world tilted. Cole stared at the cards, 5 through 9 of hearts, unable to process what he was seeing. The odds of that hand were impossible. Unless... You cheated, he said flatly. Snake's hand moved to his gun. Careful with accusations you can't prove, cowboy. Now then, Hawthorne pulled out the agreement with obscene pleasure. About that alternative payment. Section 3, subsection B. In lieu of monetary payment, the debtor agrees to... Oh, this is my favorite part. Marry the woman of the creditor's choosing within 24 hours, maintaining said marriage for a minimum of 1 year. What? Cole snatched the paper, reading frantically. There it was. In small print he'd been too drunk and proud to notice. This is insane. You can't force someone to marry. We're not forcing anyone, Snake said mildly. You agreed. Signed it nice and legal. Sheriff Thompson witnessed it, didn't you, Sheriff? From the crowd, Sheriff Thompson stepped forward, his weathered face grim. I saw him sign it. And Judge Morrison will enforce it, won't you, Judge? The judge, Hawthorne's cousin, nodded from his table. A contract is a contract. Of course, Hawthorne continued, you could always refuse. Pack up and leave town tonight. We'll take your ranch as compensation, naturally, and spread word to every town from here to California that Cole Matthews is a man who doesn't honor his debts. Cole's hands clenched into fists. His ranch, his reputation, everything he'd built, gone. Unless... Who? He asked through gritted teeth. Hawthorne's grin nearly split his face. Why, Selina Carter, of course. The beautiful widow who's been alone far too long. The tray slipped from Selena's hands, glasses shattering on the floor. The sound seemed to break whatever spell held the saloon frozen. Men began muttering, some in disgust, others in cruel amusement. "No," Selena's voice cut through the noise. "No, I won't." "You don't have a choice either, my dear," Hawthorne said with false sympathy. "Your late husband's debts, remember? The ones I bought from the general store, the livery, the doctor? Marry Mr. Matthews here, or I call them all due tomorrow. You'll be in jail by sunset." Cole watched the blood drain from Selena's face. She stood tall despite it, her chin raised in defiance that made something twist in his chest. He'd never really looked at her before. Not properly. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. There was a strength in her bearing, a pride that poverty and widowhood hadn't managed to break. "This is wrong," Cole said. "You can't—" "I can and I will." Hawthorne stood, his bulk casting a shadow over the table. 24 hours, Matthews. Marriage or ruin. Your choice." Snake gathered the cards with practiced ease, slipping them into his coat. "Pleasure doing business with you, cowboy." "I do hope the wedding's nice." "I plan to attend." They left together, Hawthorne's heavy tread and Snake's slithering stride, leaving Cole and Selena standing in the wreckage of their futures. The saloon began to empty, men avoiding eye contact as they filed out, ashamed of what they'd witnessed but too cowardly to have stopped it. Finally, only Cole, Selena, and Tom the bartender remained. Tom, an old soldier with one arm, shook his head sadly. "Saw a snake palm that card, Cole. Saw it clear as day. But there's nothing to be done, not with Hawthorne owning half the town. You could testify. And be dead before sunrise? I got grandchildren, Cole. I'm sorry." Tom retreated to the back room, leaving them alone. Cole finally looked directly at Selena, seeing the tears she refused to let fall, the way her hands trembled despite her straight spine. "I'm sorry," he said, the words woefully inadequate. "I was a fool." "Yes," she agreed quietly. "You were. There has to be a way out of this." "There isn't." Her voice was steady now, resigned. "Hawthorne's wanted my land since Marcus died. That creek that runs through it controls water rights for half the valley. He's tried everything, offers, threats, even sending men to damage my fences and scatter my few cattle. This," she laughed bitterly, "this is creative, even for him. Why doesn't he just marry you himself?" The look she gave him could have peeled paint. A white banker marry a colored woman? In Wyoming? He'd be run out of town on a rail, powerful or not. But forcing a down-on-his-luck cowboy to do it? That's just entertainment for these people. Cole flinched at the truth of it. "I won't let them—" "Won't let them what?" Selena's composure finally cracked. "You already did. You sat down at that table, you signed that paper, you played their game, and now we both pay the price." She was right, every word of it. Cole had walked into their trap with his eyes wide open, driven by pride and greed and whiskey-fueled stupidity, and now this woman would suffer for it. "Your husband's debts," Cole said slowly. "How much?" $800. Might as well be 8,000 for all I have. Cole reached for his saddlebags, then remembered. Snake and Hawthorne had taken everything. He had maybe $50 to his name now, and a ranch that wouldn't be his much longer if he didn't comply. "If we marry," he said carefully, "Hawthorne gets control of your land through me. Unless—" Selena's eyes sharpened. "Unless we make our own agreement. A real marriage contract filed before the ceremony, keeping our properties separate. Would that work? My father was a freedman who studied law before he died. Taught me enough to know that marriage contracts can supersede other claims, if done right." She moved to the bar, pulling out a piece of paper and a pen. "We make it clear, my land remains mine, your ranch remains yours. No transfer of property without both parties' written consent. Hawthorne will contest it." "Let him. It'll take months in court, maybe years. By then—" She paused, calculating. "By then, maybe we find another way." Cole watched her write, her penmanship elegant and precise. This woman he'd barely noticed before tonight was proving to be smarter and stronger than he'd ever imagined. "Why are you helping me?" You could refuse. Run. Where? she asked without looking up. I'm a colored widow with no money and no family. At least this way I keep my land. And you? She glanced at him. You don't seem like the worst man in town, just the stupidest. Despite everything, Cole almost smiled. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me tonight. They worked through the agreement together, Selena's legal knowledge and Cole's understanding of property rights, creating something that might protect them both from Hawthorne's manipulation. As the saloon clock struck midnight, they both signed it. We'll file this with the county clerk first thing in the morning, Selena said, before the ceremony. You think the clerk will accept it? Samuel owes me. I nursed his son through scarlet fever last winter when no white doctor would come. He'll file it. They stood awkwardly, two strangers bound by circumstance and desperation. Outside, a coyote howled, the sound lonely and wild. Where are you staying tonight? Cole asked. Here. Tom lets me sleep in the storage room in exchange for cleaning. That's no place for... He stopped, realizing how presumptuous he sounded. For a woman about to be your wife? Selena's tone was dry as dust. Don't worry about my accommodations, Mr. Matthews. Worry about what happens tomorrow when this town watches us stand before God and lie about loving each other. It won't be the first lie told in church. No, she agreed softly. But it might be the saddest. Cole left her there, standing in the broken glass and spilled whiskey, a figure of dignity amid the wreckage. He rode Shadow hard through the darkness, reaching his ranch as the moon set. The small cabin looked different somehow, knowing it might not be his much longer. He'd built it with his own hands, every board and nail a testament to his determination to make something of himself in this harsh land. Inside, he lit a lamp and sat at his rough-hewn table, head in his hands. How had it come to this? This morning he'd been a successful rancher with money in his pocket and dreams of expansion. Now he was about to force a woman into marriage to save his own skin. No, not force. Selena had made her choice, just as he'd made his. They were both trying to salvage something from the disaster. But that didn't make it right. He thought about her eyes in the saloon, dark and fierce and proud, the way she'd held herself despite the humiliation, the quick intelligence as she drafted their agreement. Selena Carter was no ordinary woman, and in different circumstances. But these weren't different circumstances. These were the cards they'd been dealt by crooked dealers in a rigged game. Cole didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat and watched the sun rise over his land, painting the grasslands gold and setting the distant mountains ablaze with color. Somewhere, Selena was watching the same sunrise, preparing for a wedding neither of them wanted. The morning came too fast and not fast enough. Cole dressed in his best clothes, a clean white shirt, black pants, his father's string tie. He'd bought these clothes planning to wear them when he proposed to Emily Morrison 2 years ago, before she'd run off with a traveling salesman. Now they'd serve for a mockery of a wedding. He rode into town early, stopping first at the county clerk's office. Samuel, a thin, nervous man with thick spectacles, took the marriage contract with shaking hands. This is dangerous, Cole, he whispered, glancing around as if Hawthorne might materialize from the shadows. If he finds out I filed this before, he won't find out. Not until it's too late. You owe Selena this much, Samuel. The clerk's face reddened with shame. I know what I owe her. Her and Marcus both. He lent me money when no bank would, back when I first came to town. He stamped the document with more force than necessary. There. Filed and official. May God forgive us all. Cole's next stop was the church. Reverend Phillips, an elderly man with kind eyes and a weak spine, was preparing for the ceremony with obvious distress. This is wrong, Cole, he said, not for the first time. Marriage is a sacred bond, not a business transaction. Tell that to Hawthorne. I've tried. He's threatened to foreclose on the church if I refuse to perform the ceremony. Of course he had. Hawthorne's tentacles reached everywhere in Cheyenne Creek. Just say the words, Reverend. God will understand. Will he? Will you? Will she? Cole had no answer for that. The church began filling an hour before the ceremony. It seemed the entire town had turned out for the spectacle. Cole stood at the altar, trying to ignore the whispers and snickers from the pews. Snake Wilson sat in the front row, his pale face alight with amusement. Hawthorne took up 2 spaces beside him, sweating despite the cool morning. Then the doors opened, and Selina entered. She wore a simple blue dress, clean, but obviously mended multiple times. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant style that emphasized the proud lines of her face. She carried no flowers. This was no celebration, but she walked down that aisle like a queen approaching her throne, not a woman being forced into matrimony. Cole's breath caught. In that moment, he saw her truly. Not as a victim of circumstance, not as a solution to a problem, but as a woman of remarkable strength and grace. The townspeople's cruel laughter died in the face of her dignity. She reached the altar and stood beside him, not looking at him, her eyes fixed on some point beyond the cross. "Dearly beloved," Reverend Phillips began, his voice cracking, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Cole Matthews and Selina Carter in holy matrimony." "Get on with it," Hawthorne called out. "We haven't got all day." The Reverend flinched but continued. The words of the ceremony washed over Cole like water over stone, meaningless and cold. "Do you take this woman?" "I do." "Do you take this man?" Selina's "I do" was barely a whisper, but it rang through the church like a bell. "The rings?" the Reverend asked. "No rings," Cole said flatly. He'd sold his mother's ring to buy cattle 3 years ago. Even if he'd had it, this farce didn't deserve it. "Then, I pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride." Cole turned to Selina. For the first time since entering the church, she looked at him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but beneath the pain was something else. Determination, perhaps, or defiance. "We don't have to," he said quietly, for her ears alone. "Yes," she replied just as softly. "We do. They need to see it." She raised her face to his, and Cole bent down, pressing his lips to hers in the briefest, most chaste kiss imaginable. But even that slight contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. Her lips were soft, and she smelled of soap and something floral, lavender, maybe. The church erupted in cruel laughter and applause. Snake Wilson stood, clapping slowly. "Beautiful ceremony. Hawthorne, I believe you owe me $50. I bet it would take less than 5 minutes." "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews," Hawthorne heaved himself to his feet. "I look forward to discussing the water rights on your wife's land." Soon. The threat was clear. The marriage contract might protect them legally, but Hawthorne wouldn't give up easily. This was just the beginning of their troubles. As the crowd filed out, eager to spread gossip about the forced wedding, Cole and Selina stood alone at the altar. The Reverend had fled to his office, unable to face what he'd done. "What now?" Selina asked. "Now we go to my ranch." "Our ranch, I suppose. I have things at the boarding house. Clothes, my mother's Bible, Marcus's tools. We'll get them." They walked out of the church together, husband and wife-in-law if nothing else. The sun was high and harsh, casting sharp shadows across the dusty street. People stopped to stare, some with pity, others with cruel amusement. At the boarding house, the landlady, Mrs. Garrett, a pinch-faced woman who'd never hidden her disdain for renting to a colored woman, practically threw Selina's belongings at them. "Good riddance," she spat. "Never wanted your kind here anyway. At least now you're someone else's problem." Cole stepped forward, but Selina placed a hand on his arm. "Don't. She's not worth it." They loaded her few possessions into Cole's wagon, 2 dresses, a handful of books, a wooden box of tools, a quilt that looked handmade. The sum total of a life, and it barely filled the wagon bed. The ride to Cole's ranch was silent except for the creak of wheels and the sound of horses' hooves. Selina sat rigid beside him, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the horizon. Cole wanted to say something, anything, to ease the tension, but what words could possibly help? As they crested the final hill, the ranch came into view. It wasn't much. A single-room cabin, a barn, a corral with a handful of horses, 40 head of cattle scattered across the grassland. But it was his, built with sweat and determination. "It's not fancy," he said, suddenly self-conscious. "It's clean," Selina observed, "and the land is good. That creek to the west, is that your water source?" "Yes," Fed by mountain runoff, never runs dry. Smart positioning. Marcus always said water was more valuable than gold out here. Your husband was a wise man. He was. Her voice softened. He would have hated this, what they've done to us. Cole helped her down from the wagon, her hand small and work-roughened in his. We'll make it right somehow. Will we? She looked up at him, and for a moment her mask slipped, showing the fear beneath. Hawthorne won't stop. He'll find ways to make our lives miserable until we give him what he wants. Then we'll fight back. With what? You have no money. I have no influence. We're, she gestured between them, a white man and a colored woman in a forced marriage. Half the town thinks it's a joke, the other half thinks it's an abomination. Cole had no answer to that. She was right, of course. They were David facing Goliath, armed with nothing but a questionable marriage contract and stubborn pride. Inside the cabin, Cole showed her around. Not that there was much to see. One room with a bed in the corner, a table, 2 chairs, a wood stove, shelves with a few dishes and supplies. I'll sleep in the barn, he said quickly. You can have the cabin. That's your bed. Now it's yours. Selena moved to the window, looking out at the land. This isn't how I imagined my life. No? When I was young, my father filled my head with dreams. Said that after the war, colored folks would be truly free. Could own land, run businesses, raise families without fear. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Then he was killed by men who didn't like a colored man who could read. Mama died of grief within a year. I came west thinking it would be different. Met Marcus, thought we'd build something together. Then fever took him, and now you're married to a fool who lost you in a poker game. She turned to him, and to his surprise, there was the tiniest smile on her lips. At least you admit you're a fool. That's more than most men would. I'll make this right, Selena. I don't know how, but don't make promises you can't keep. She moved past him to collect her things from the wagon. For now, we survive. That's all we can do. That evening, Cole cobbled together a meal from his meager supplies, beans, cornbread, the last of his preserved meat. Selena had found his small garden behind the cabin, half dead from neglect, and spent the afternoon working in it, bringing it back to some semblance of life. They ate in awkward silence, the weight of their situation hanging between them like a physical presence. As darkness fell, Cole gathered blankets and headed for the door. Cole, Selena's voice stopped him. This isn't your fault. Not entirely. Isn't it? Hawthorne would have found another way. He always does. At least this way we both keep our land. For now. It was small comfort, but Cole took it. In the barn, lying on a bed of hay with horses for company, he stared up at the rafters and wondered what tomorrow would bring. They were married, but not truly wed, together, but alone, fighting a battle they were almost certain to lose. But as he finally drifted toward sleep, he thought of Selena's straight spine as she'd walked down that aisle, her dignity in the face of humiliation, her quick mind as she'd drafted their contract. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. The next morning brought trouble, as Cole had known it would. He woke to the sound of horses approaching, lots of them. Grabbing his rifle, he emerged from the barn to find 10 men arranged in a semicircle in front of his cabin. Hawthorne sat in a wagon, too heavy to mount a horse, while Snake Wilson lounged in his saddle with casual menace. "Morning, Matthews," Hawthorne called out cheerfully. "Thought we'd pay the newlyweds a visit." Selena appeared in the cabin doorway, fully dressed despite the early hour. She'd been expecting this too. "What do you want?" Cole asked, though he knew. "Just wanted to discuss business, now that we're all family, so to speak." Hawthorne's grin was obscene. "About those water rights are not for sale or negotiation," Selena said firmly. "That land was my husband's, now it's mine, and it will remain mine." "But surely your new husband has some say in the matter," Snake interjected. "After all, what's yours is his now, legally speaking." "Actually," Cole said, "we filed a marriage contract yesterday morning. Before the ceremony, our properties remain separate." The smile slid off Hawthorne's face like oil. "You did what?" Protected our interests, Selina said, as is our legal right. Samuel! Hawthorne bellowed, and the nervous clerk was pushed forward from behind the other riders. Is this true? That is... Samuel glanced at Selina apologetically. Yes, sir. They filed a binding marriage contract maintaining separate property rights. Hawthorne's face turned an alarming shade of purple. You little rat! You work for me. I work for the county, Samuel said, finding a spark of courage. And I did my job. Snake Wilson laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. Well played, Matthews. Didn't think you had it in you. This changes nothing, Hawthorne snarled. That contract can be contested, and in the meantime, accidents happen. Fences break, cattle wander, wells get poisoned. Are you threatening us? Cole raised his rifle slightly. Not at all. Just observing that ranching is dangerous work, especially for a mixed couple with no friends in town. Hawthorne's smile returned, cold and mean. But I'm a reasonable man. Sell me the water rights and I'll make sure you're both protected. Hell, I'll even throw in enough money for you two to start fresh somewhere else. California, maybe. I hear they're more accepting of unusual arrangements. No, Selina said simply. You haven't heard my offer. No amount is enough. That land was Marcus's dream. I won't sell it to you or anyone. Hawthorne studied them both, his small eyes calculating. You'll regret this, both of you. We'll see, Cole said. The group wheeled their horses and rode off, but not before Snake tipped his hat mockingly. Enjoy married life, folks, however long it lasts. When they were gone, Selina sagged against the doorframe. It's starting. Yeah. They'll make our lives hell. Probably. She looked at him, really looked at him. Why are you doing this? You could sign over my land, take Hawthorne's money, leave. Cole thought about it, trying to find the words. Because it's wrong. What they did to us, what they're trying to do, and because... He hesitated, then plunged ahead. Because you don't deserve any of this. You're a good woman, Selina. Marcus was lucky to have you. Marcus is dead, she said flatly. And luck had nothing to do with any of this. She went back inside, leaving Cole standing in the morning sun, rifle in hand, wondering how long they could hold out against Hawthorne's siege. The answer came sooner than expected. 3 days later, Cole woke to find his southern fence cut and 20 head of cattle missing. A week after that, someone poisoned the salt lick in his eastern pasture, killing 3 more head. His neighbors, men he'd known for years, suddenly had no time to talk when he went to town for supplies. Selina fared no better. The general store refused her credit. The church ladies who'd once hired her for sewing work suddenly had no need for her services. When she walked down the street, people crossed to the other side or stared with open hostility. But something strange happened as the weeks passed. Instead of breaking under the pressure, Cole and Selina began to work together. She helped him repair the fences, her smaller hands better at intricate wire work. He taught her to shoot, spending evenings practicing behind the barn until she could hit a can at 50 paces. They developed a routine, morning chores together, afternoons split between their separate properties, evenings sharing a meal and planning their defense against whatever Hawthorne would try next. And slowly, carefully, they began to know each other. You never said how you met Marcus, Cole said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains red. At a church social in Kansas City, Selina smiled at the memory. I was 17, fresh off my father's death, working as a seamstress. Marcus was 10 years older, already talking about heading west. He courted me for 6 months before I agreed to marry him. You loved him. I did. He was a good man, gentle, smart, full of dreams. She paused. Nothing like you. Cole didn't know whether to be insulted or not. Thanks? I didn't mean it badly. You're just different. Marcus planned everything, thought through every angle. You act on instinct. And look where that got us. Here, she said simply, which isn't the worst place to be. He looked at her surprised. In the fading light, her profile was elegant, regal even. You're not what I expected either. What did you expect? I don't know, someone less. Less? Less strong, less smart, less. He struggled for words. Less everything you are. She turned to him, her dark eyes unreadable. Careful, Cole. That almost sounded like a compliment. Maybe it was. They sat in comfortable silence until the stars came out, brilliant in the clear Wyoming sky. For the first time since their forced marriage, Cole felt something other than guilt and anger. He felt possibility. The possibility Cole had felt that evening shattered like glass 3 mornings later when he found Shadow lying dead in her stall, foam dried around her mouth, her beautiful bay coat already cold. The mare who'd carried him through blizzards and prairie fires, who'd been his companion since he'd first arrived in Wyoming, was gone, poisoned, without a doubt. Cole fell to his knees beside her, his hands trembling as he stroked her neck one last time. He didn't hear Selena approach until she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "She was a beautiful horse." "She was more than that," Cole's voice cracked. "She was family," Selena finished. "I understand." And somehow he knew she did. She'd lost too much not to understand that kind of grief. They buried Shadow beneath the cottonwood tree behind the barn, Selena singing a hymn in a voice that made Cole's chest tight with unexpected emotion. When they finished, she didn't speak empty platitudes or try to minimize his loss. She simply stood with him in shared sorrow. That night, Cole didn't go to the barn. He sat at the table in the cabin, cleaning his rifle with methodical precision. Selena watched from her seat by the stove, mending one of his shirts without being asked. "You're planning something," she said. It wasn't a question. They've gone too far. "Violence won't solve this, Cole. It's what they want. Give Hawthorne an excuse to have you arrested or killed, and he gets everything. Then what do you suggest? We just let them destroy us piece by piece." Selena set down her sewing. "Marcus used to say that when you're outgunned, you don't fight with guns. You fight with what they don't expect, which is intelligence, alliance, the law they think they own." She stood, moving to the window. "There are others in this town who hate Hawthorne, too scared to act alone, but together. Nobody will stand with us. You've seen how they treat us. In public, yes, but Mrs. Chen at the laundry? Her husband owes Hawthorne $300. The Petersons lost their farm to foreclosure last year. Even Tom at the saloon. Hawthorne owns 60% of his business and bleeds him dry. There are more enemies than allies in this town, Cole. We just need to give them courage." Cole studied her, this woman he'd been forced to marry who was proving to be stronger and smarter than any man he knew. "You have a plan. The beginning of one. But I'll need your help. And we'll need to be careful. One wrong move and..." A shot rang out, shattering the window inches from Selena's head. Cole lunged forward, pulling her to the floor as another bullet embedded itself in the wall where she'd been standing. "Stay down!" He grabbed his rifle, crawling to the broken window. In the darkness, he could see riders, 5, maybe 6, circling the cabin. Another shot took out the second window. "Matthews!" a voice called out. Not Hawthorne or Snake, someone younger. "This is just a warning. Sell out now, or next time we won't miss." Cole fired back, his shot deliberately high. He didn't want to kill anyone if he could avoid it. That would bring the law down on them for certain. The riders whooped and laughed, firing a few more rounds into the cabin walls before thundering off into the night. When the hoofbeats faded, Cole helped Selena to her feet. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheek where glass had grazed her. "Let me see," he said softly, tilting her face toward the lamplight. The cut wasn't deep, but seeing her hurt made something savage rise in his chest. He wet a cloth and gently cleaned the wound, acutely aware of how close she stood, of the warmth of her skin under his fingers. "This is my fault," he said. "No." She caught his wrist as he started to pull away. "This is Hawthorne's fault, and Snake Wilson's, and every coward in town who lets them run wild. Not yours." They stood frozen for a moment, her hand on his wrist, his fingers still touching her face. Something shifted between them, electric and unexpected. Then Selena stepped back, breaking the spell. "We should board up the windows," she said, her voice carefully neutral. They worked in silence, using planks from the barn to cover the broken glass. When they finished, the cabin was dark as a cave, lit only by the single lamp on the table. "You should leave," Cole said suddenly. "Take whatever money I can scrape together, go east. This isn't your fight." Selena's eyes flashed. "Isn't it? They forced me into this marriage same as you. They killed my husband's dream, tried to break me. This is more my fight than yours, Cole Matthews. But you could be safe." "Safe?" She laughed bitterly. "Where exactly would a colored widow be safe? Show me this magical place where I wouldn't face hatred or violence, or men trying to take what little I have. At least here, I have land. I have legal standing, however tenuous. I have—" She paused, then continued more softly. "I have an ally, strange as this arrangement is." "Is that what we are? Allies? Would you prefer enemies?" "I'd prefer—" Cole stopped, unsure what he was about to say. What did he prefer? This woman who'd been forced into his life was becoming something he hadn't expected. Not just an ally, but what? "We should take turns keeping watch," Selena said, breaking the tension. "They might come back." Cole nodded, grateful for the change of subject. "I'll take first watch. Wake me in 3 hours." She retreated to the corner where they'd strung up a blanket for privacy around the bed. Cole heard the rustle of fabric as she prepared for sleep and determinedly turned his attention to the door, rifle across his lap. The night passed without further incident, but sleep eluded both of them. When dawn finally came, they were exhausted but alive, and somehow that felt like a victory. After a breakfast of coffee and hard biscuit, Selena put on her best dress, the blue one from their wedding, now cleaned and pressed. "Where are you going?" Cole asked. "To town, to start building those alliances I mentioned. After last night—" "Are you insane?" "After last night, it's more important than ever." She pinned her hair up with practiced efficiency. "They want us cowering here, afraid. I won't give them that satisfaction." "Then I'm coming with you." "No, you'll make things worse. A white man defending his colored wife? That'll just give them more ammunition." She saw his expression and softened. "I'll be careful. But this is something I need to do." Cole wanted to argue, but he recognized the steel in her voice. This was the same woman who'd walked down that church aisle with her head high despite the mockery. "Take the pistol." "I will." She left in the wagon, and Cole spent the longest morning of his life pacing the cabin, starting at every sound. When she finally returned just after noon, he nearly collapsed with relief. "Well?" he asked as she climbed down. 3 yeses, 2 maybes, and 1 door slammed in my face." She smiled grimly. "Better than I expected." "Who said yes?" "Mrs. Chen, as I thought. Her anger at Hawthorne outweighs her fear. Tom from the saloon, apparently last night was too much even for him. And surprisingly, Judge Morrison." "The judge? Hawthorne's cousin? Who's been skimming from Hawthorne's accounts for 2 years and is terrified of being caught?" Selena's smile turned sharp. "Amazing what people tell you when they think you're just invisible help." Cole stared at her with something approaching awe. "You knew about that." "I cleaned his office twice a week when I worked at the saloon." Men never think servants can read or understand numbers. She moved past him into the cabin. "The Petersons are considering it. They want to help, but they're scared for their children. And Samuel from the clerk's office might join us if we can guarantee protection." "Protection we don't have." "Not yet. But if we get enough people, a handful of desperate folks against Hawthorne's money and guns—" "David was just a shepherd boy," Selena said quietly. "Sometimes that's enough." That afternoon, while Cole worked on reinforcing the cabin's defenses, he heard horses approaching. His hand went to his gun, but Selena placed a hand on his arm. "It's Mrs. Chen," she said, peering through a crack in the boarded window. "And she's not alone." Indeed, the tiny Chinese woman had brought her husband and, surprisingly, 2 of the Mexican families who worked the mines north of town. They gathered in the cabin, an unlikely group of outcasts and underdogs, united only in their hatred of Hawthorne. "He raised the interest on our loan again," Mr. Chen said in careful English. 60% now. We cannot pay. He owns the company store at the mine, one of the Mexican men, Rodriguez, added. Charges us 3 times normal price, pays us half wages. We're slaves in everything but name. Then we fight back, Selena said. Not with guns, but with law. With unity. How? Mrs. Chen asked. First, we document everything. Every illegal interest rate, every rigged game, every threat. Cole and I have already started, but we need more. That's paper, Rodriguez said dismissively. Hawthorne owns the law. He owns the local law, Cole interjected, understanding Selena's plan. But Wyoming's a territory. Federal marshals still have jurisdiction. Get enough evidence, make enough noise, and someone will have to investigate. And if Hawthorne finds out before then? He already knows we're against him, Selena said, but he doesn't know we're organizing. We meet in secret, gather evidence quietly. When we have enough, we send it all at once to the federal authorities. The group exchanged uncertain glances, fear warring with hope in their faces. I have records. Judge Morrison's voice came from the doorway. Everyone spun to see the judge standing there, looking haggard and years older than his age. Proof of Hawthorne's bribes, the rigged trials, the forged documents. I've kept it all, insurance against the day he turned on me. Why help us now? Cole asked suspiciously. Because last night, those riders, one of them was my son. Hawthorne's corrupted him, turned him into a night rider and thug. I've lost everything to that man, my integrity, my family, my soul. Maybe helping you is my way of finding redemption. Or maybe it's a trap, Rodriguez said. The judge reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope. These are copies of deeds Hawthorne forged to steal the Peterson farm. The originals are in his safe. This alone could see him hanged. Selena took the envelope, scanning the contents. Her eyes widened. This is exactly what we need. There's more where that came from. But we'll need to be careful. Hawthorne has eyes everywhere. They spent the next 2 hours planning, each person taking on a role. The Chens would gather testimonies from other Chinese families. Rodriguez would organize the Mexican workers. The judge would carefully copy more documents. Tom would listen for information in the saloon. What about the killing part? Rodriguez asked bluntly. Because that's what it'll come to. Hawthorne won't go quietly. Then we make sure he doesn't have a choice, Cole said. We hit him from so many directions at once, he won't know where to fight back. After the others left, traveling separately to avoid suspicion, Cole and Selena sat in the gathering dusk, the weight of what they'd started settling on their shoulders. We've painted a target on ourselves, Cole said. We already had one. Now at least we're shooting back. He looked at her, this remarkable woman who'd been forced into his life. You're not what I expected when I woke up that morning in Denver. What did you expect? I don't know. A normal life, build my ranch, maybe find a willing wife, have children who'd inherit the land. I'm sorry you lost that dream. Are you? He turned to face her fully. Because I'm starting to think maybe I was meant to lose that poker game. Maybe this, us fighting together, maybe this is what was supposed to happen. Selena's breath caught. Cole? I know this isn't real, what we have. I know it was forced on both of us. But working beside you these weeks, seeing your strength, your intelligence, your courage, I can't imagine facing this with anyone else. Don't, she said softly. Don't make this something it's not. We're allies, partners against a common enemy. When Hawthorne's gone, when we're safe, you can divorce me. Find that willing wife you wanted. What if I don't want to? The words hung between them like a challenge. Selena stood abruptly, moving to the stove. You don't mean that. It's the danger, the isolation. When this is over, you'll see clearly again. My vision's pretty clear right now. Your vision sees a woman you were forced to marry who happens to be useful in a fight. When the fight's over, you'll still be the bravest, smartest, most infuriating woman I've ever met. She turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes. And I'll still be colored, Cole. In Wyoming. In America. Do you understand what that means? What our children would face? What you would face, married to me by choice instead of force? I understand? No, you don't. You've been white your whole life. You don't know what it's like to be hated for existing. To have doors closed, opportunities denied, violence threatened just for the color of your skin. Add a mixed marriage to that. She shook her head. I won't do that to children. I won't do that to you. Don't I get a say in it? Not about this. Her voice was firm but sad. We finish what we started with Hawthorne. We save our land, then we go our separate ways. It's the only sensible thing. Cole wanted to argue, to tell her that sense had nothing to do with the way his chest tightened when she smiled, or how empty the cabin felt when she wasn't in it, but he saw the pain in her eyes and knew pushing would only hurt her more. All right, he said quietly, we'll focus on Hawthorne. Relief in something that might have been disappointment flashed across her face. Thank you. That night they took turns standing watch again, but the darkness remained quiet. In the morning, Tom arrived with news that set their plans in motion faster than expected. Hawthorne's bringing in more guns, he said, gulping the coffee Selena offered. Hired killers from Laramie. They'll be here by week's end. How many? Cole asked. 20, maybe more. Enough to burn out everyone who won't sell. Then we need to move now, Selena said. Judge Morrison, how quickly can you gather the rest of the evidence? 2 days, maybe 3. We don't have 3 days, Cole said. Once those guns arrive, evidence won't matter. We'll all be dead or run off. There's another way, Tom said reluctantly. Hawthorne keeps his most damaging papers in his personal safe. Contracts, original deeds, records of bribes. Get those and we'd have enough to hang him twice over. You're talking about robbery, the judge said. I'm talking about recovering stolen property, Tom countered. Half those deeds are forged or coerced. Where's the safe? Selena asked. His house. Second floor study. That's suicide. He has guards. Not tomorrow night, Tom said. There's a cattle auction in Laramie. Hawthorne never misses it. Too good a chance to cheat ranchers out of their stock. He'll take Snake and most of his men. Leaving the house vulnerable, Cole mused. It's still too dangerous, the judge protested. Everything we're doing is dangerous, Selena said, but this could end it all in one stroke. They debated for another hour, but in the end, necessity won. Cole would enter Hawthorne's house while Selena and Tom created a distraction in town. The judge would prepare the legal documents to send to the federal marshal the moment they had the evidence. The next night came too quickly. Cole dressed in dark clothes, his face grim as he checked his pistol. Be careful, Selena said, adjusting his collar unnecessarily. You too. A distraction doesn't mean putting yourself in danger. I'll be fine. Tom and I are just going to start a very public argument about his saloon ownership. Draw the remaining guards to town. Cole caught her hand. Selena, if something happens, nothing will happen. We're going to win this. But if it does, she pulled her hand free. Don't say it. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Just come back safe. He wanted to kiss her. The urge was so strong it took physical effort to step back. I'll see you at the cabin. The ride to Hawthorne's house felt endless. The mansion sat on a hill overlooking the town, a monument to greed built on others' misery. As promised, fewer guards patrolled than usual. Cole waited in the shadows until he heard shouting from town. Selena and Tom's distraction working perfectly. 2 guards ran toward the commotion, leaving just one at the front door. Cole circled to the back, finding a servant's entrance. The lock was simple, and within minutes he was inside. The house was opulent in a way that turned Cole's stomach. Crystal chandeliers, imported rugs, paintings that cost more than most families saw in a lifetime, all bought with blood and suffering. He found the study on the 2nd floor, its door locked, but not impenetrably so. Inside, the safe sat behind a portrait of Hawthorne himself, the painted eyes seeming to watch as Cole worked. The safe was more complex than he'd expected. His fingers worked frantically, ear pressed to the metal, listening for the telltale clicks. Time stretched like taffy, sweat dripped down his back, then success. The safe swung open, revealing stacks of documents, money, and gold. Cole ignored the wealth, focusing on the papers, deeds, contracts, ledgers detailing bribes and forged documents, enough to destroy Hawthorne completely. He was stuffing the papers into his satchel when he heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy, measured steps. Cole's blood froze. Those weren't the steps of a guard. The door opened and Snake Wilson stood there, his pale face amused. "Hello, Matthews. Thought you might try something like this." Cole's hand went to his gun, but Snake was faster, his pistol already drawn and aimed. "Hawthorne will be disappointed he missed this," Snake said conversationally, "but he left me behind specifically for this possibility. You see, we knew about your little alliance. The judge isn't as clever as he thinks." "You knew?" "Of course. Did you really think you could organize against us in secret? This town belongs to Hawthorne." Snake's smile was cold. "Or it did. Personally, I think he's gotten soft. Too comfortable. Maybe it's time for new management." "You're betraying him?" "Betraying suggests loyalty. I'm a businessman, Matthews, and right now you're bad for business. All this organizing, fighting back, it gives people ideas. Can't have that. So you'll kill me and blame it on a robbery gone wrong. Oh, I'll kill you. But not here. Too messy. You're going to walk out of here nice and quiet. We'll ride to your ranch, where I'll kill you and that wife of yours. Murder-suicide. Tragic what happens when races mix, drives men crazy." Cole's mind raced. Selena was at the cabin, probably alone by now. "She's in town." "No, the distraction ended 10 minutes ago. She'll be home, waiting for you." Snake gestured with his gun. "Shall we?" They walked downstairs, Snake's gun pressed to Cole's back. Cole's mind worked frantically, looking for an opportunity, but Snake was too careful, too experienced. Outside, their horses waited. As Cole mounted, he caught movement in the shadows. His heart sank, thinking it was more of Snake's men. But then he saw her. Selena, moving like a ghost through the darkness. She'd followed him. Of course she had. "That's far enough," Snake said as they reached the bottom of the hill. "Actually, this is perfect. Nice and isolated." He raised his gun to Cole's head and time slowed. Cole saw Selena step from the shadows, the pistol he'd taught her to use steady in her hands. He saw Snake's eyes widen slightly, sensing danger. He saw the moment of decision. The shots came simultaneously. Snake's went wide as Selena's bullet took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Cole lunged from his horse, tackling Snake to the ground. They fought desperately, rolling in the dirt, each trying to gain control of Snake's gun. Snake was stronger than his thin frame suggested, and he was fighting with a wounded animal's fury. He managed to get the gun between them, angling it toward Cole's chest. Cole grabbed his wrist, barely holding it back. Another shot rang out. Snake went limp, his pale eyes staring at nothing. Selena stood over them, smoke rising from her pistol, her face carved from stone. "Is he dead?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Cole checked Snake's pulse. "Yes." "Good." She helped Cole to his feet. "Did you get the documents?" "Yes, but Selena, you just killed a man." "A man who is going to kill you. Kill us both." She looked down at Snake's body without remorse. "He made his choice. There'll be questions. An investigation. Let them investigate. We have the evidence now. Hawthorne's finished." She looked at him, and in the moonlight he saw tears tracking down her cheeks. "I couldn't let him hurt you." "You followed me." "Of course I did." "Did you really think I'd let you face this alone?" She laughed shakily. "We're partners, remember?" Cole pulled her into his arms without thinking, holding her as she shook with delayed reaction. She didn't pull away, instead burying her face in his chest, her tears soaking his shirt. "I've never killed anyone before," she whispered. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to." "I'm not." She pulled back to look at him. "If it meant saving you, I'd do it again." They stood there, holding each other in the darkness with Snake's body at their feet, and Cole realized the truth. Whatever this had started as, a forced marriage, a business arrangement, it had become something else, something real. "We need to move the body," Selena said practically, "and get those documents to the judge." They worked together, loading Snake onto his horse. They'd take him to the sheriff, claim self-defense. With the documents they now had, their word would carry more weight than before. As they rode back toward town, Cole reached over and took Selena's hand. She didn't pull away. "When this is over," he said, When Hawthorne's gone and we're safe, I want to talk about us. Cole, not now, I know, but after. When you can't claim I'm confused by danger or isolation, when we can think clearly, then we talk about what this is between us. She squeezed his hand once before letting go. After, she agreed. They reached town to find chaos. News of Snake's death had somehow preceded them, and people were gathering in the street. Sheriff Thompson stood on the jail steps, trying to maintain order. "There they are," someone shouted. "The murderers." "We defended ourselves," Cole said loudly. "Snake Wilson tried to kill us." "Likely story," someone else called. "A colored woman and her husband kill a white man and claim self-defense?" "It's true," a new voice said. Judge Morrison pushed through the crowd, and he wasn't alone. Tom, the Chens, Rodriguez and his people, even some faces Cole didn't recognize. "We have evidence of a conspiracy. Hawthorne and Wilson have been terrorizing this town, and these two have stood against them." "Evidence?" Sheriff Thompson asked, clearly torn between duty and his fear of Hawthorne. Cole held up the satchel. "Enough to see Hawthorne hanged, forged deeds, records of bribes, proof of murder." The crowd murmured, uncertainty replacing hostility. The sheriff reached for the satchel, but Cole pulled it back. "This goes to the federal marshal. Tonight." "You can't." "We can and will," the judge said. "I'm still a federal judge, however corrupted I've been. This is my jurisdiction, and I'm taking custody of this evidence." For a moment, the scene balanced on a knife's edge. Then the sheriff stepped back. "Take it. I want no part of whatever's coming." The crowd began to disperse, but not before Cole heard the whispers starting. The tide was turning. Hawthorne's reign of fear was cracking. They spent the rest of the night at the judge's house preparing the package for the federal marshal. Statements, evidence, documentation of years of crimes. As dawn broke, Rodriguez's nephew rode out with the package, racing for Cheyenne, where the nearest federal office waited. "Now we wait," the judge said, exhausted. "Now we survive," Selena corrected. "Hawthorne will be back today. When he finds out about Snake, about the evidence, he'll come for us," Cole finished. "Then we'll be ready," Tom said. "The whole town knows now." People are choosing sides. They returned to the ranch to find it untouched, a small miracle. But Cole knew it wouldn't last. Hawthorne would react, and when he did, it would be with all the fury of a cornered animal. He was right. Just after noon, they saw the dust cloud of approaching riders. Many riders. "Get inside," Cole told Selena, checking his rifle. "I'm staying with you." "Selena, partners," she said firmly, loading her pistol. "Yu fan sao. Lu I traloi tramuktinyan komye sang document edit." The riders stopped just outside rifle range, spreading out in a semicircle that blocked any escape route. Hawthorne's massive bulk was unmistakable even at a distance, his horse laboring under the weight. But it was the men with him that made Cole's blood run cold. 20 hired guns, just as Tom had warned, their faces hard and empty of anything resembling mercy. "Matthews!" Hawthorne's voice carried across the distance. "You killed my associate, stole from my home. Come out and face justice." "Your justice or real justice?" Cole called back from the doorway. "Because the federal marshal will be here within days." Hawthorne laughed, the sound bitter and ugly. "Days? You think you have days? I own this town, Matthews. The sheriff, the judge. Not anymore." Judge Morrison's voice interrupted as he rode up from the opposite direction, and he wasn't alone. Behind him came Tom, the Chens, Rodriguez with a dozen miners, and surprisingly, at least 30 townspeople Cole recognized. "Things have changed while you were gone, Jeremiah." Hawthorne's face purpled with rage. "You dare betray me, cousin? After everything I've done for you?" "Done to me, you mean," the judge replied steadily. "It's over. The evidence is already on its way to Cheyenne. Every forged deed, every bribe, every murder you ordered, including Marcus Carter's." Selena's sharp intake of breath beside Cole was audible. "What? Oh, didn't you know?" Hawthorne's smile was vicious. "Your husband's fever wasn't natural. Snake was quite proud of that particular poison. Slow acting, mimics typhoid perfectly. The pistol was in Selena's hand before Cole could stop her, aimed at Hawthorne's heart. Her whole body trembled, but her aim was steady. "You murdered him," she said, her voice deadly quiet. "He never did anything to you except own land you wanted. Business, my dear, nothing personal. Everything's personal when you kill someone's husband." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Selena," Cole said softly, "don't. Not like this, not in cold blood. He deserves it. Yes, but you don't deserve to carry it. You're better than him." For a long moment, nobody moved. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Selena lowered the gun, tears streaming down her face. "You're right," she said. "I am better. We all are. That's why we're going to win." "Touching," Hawthorne sneered. "But you seem to be outnumbered. My men against your rabble?" "Look again," Rodriguez said. More people were arriving, streaming in from town and the surrounding homesteads. The Petersons with their older boys. Samuel the clerk, looking terrified but determined. Even Sheriff Thompson, badge glinting in the sun. "What are you doing here, Sheriff?" Hawthorne demanded. "My job," Thompson replied. "For the first time in years, my actual job. These folks are under my protection until the federal marshal arrives." "I own you." "You owned me," Thompson corrected. "But that was before I remembered why I became a lawman in the first place. Before I saw these two stand up to you despite everything. If a colored widow and a broke cowboy can fight back, what excuse do I have?" The hired guns were shifting nervously. They'd been paid to intimidate farmers and small ranchers, not face down an entire town. "This changes nothing," Hawthorne said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "You think these people will stand when bullets start flying? They'll scatter like chickens." "Maybe," Cole said, stepping fully outside. "But are you willing to find out? Start a massacre in front of 50 witnesses? Even you can't bribe your way out of that." "He's right," one of the hired guns spoke up. "This ain't what we signed on for, Mr. Hawthorne. Fighting back shooters is one thing. Slaughtering a whole town? That's a hanging offense for sure. I'm paying you. Not enough for this." The gunman turned his horse. "I'm out." Others followed, first one, then three, then half of them. Within minutes, Hawthorne's force had dwindled to 8 men, and even they looked uncertain. "You cowards!" Hawthorne screamed. "I'll ruin you all! You'll do nothing," a new voice said. A man in a federal marshal's badge rode through the crowd, followed by a dozen deputies. "Jeremiah Hawthorne, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and murder." "How? The package couldn't have reached Cheyenne yet." The marshal smiled grimly. "We've been investigating you for 6 months, Mr. Hawthorne. The territorial governor has received numerous complaints. We were already on our way when we met young Rodriguez on the road. His evidence just made our job easier." "This is impossible. I have rights. I have lawyers." "You have the right to hang," the marshal said. "Take him." The deputies moved in, and Hawthorne's remaining men threw down their weapons rather than face federal authority. Hawthorne himself tried to run, spurring his horse desperately, but he didn't get far. His horse, overburdened and exhausted, stumbled after only a few yards, sending Hawthorne tumbling into the dirt. He struggled to his feet, covered in dust and humiliation, as the deputies surrounded him. The man who'd terrorized Cheyenne Creek for years was reduced to a pathetic, wheezing figure being loaded into shackles. "This isn't over," he screamed as they dragged him away. "I'll be back. You'll all pay." "No," Selena said quietly, but her voice carried. "You won't." The crowd watched in silence as Hawthorne was loaded into a prison wagon. Then someone started clapping, then another. Soon the entire gathering was applauding, some crying, others laughing with relief. Cole felt Selena sway beside him and caught her arm. "Are you all right?" "Marcus was murdered," she said numbly. "All this time I blamed myself for not being able to save him from the fever. But it wasn't fever. I'm sorry. God, Selena, I'm so sorry." She turned into his chest, and he held her while she cried, Not the controlled tears of earlier, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. The crowd respectfully dispersed, giving them privacy in their grief. When her tears finally slowed, she pulled back, wiping her face. He would have been proud of what we did, standing up to them. He would have been proud of you, Cole corrected. You're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. I feel... She paused, searching for words. Empty. For 2 years, I've carried the weight of Marcus's death. Now I know it wasn't natural, and that should make it worse, but somehow it's freeing. Does that make me terrible? No. It makes you human. Judge Morrison approached hesitantly. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are matters to address. The marshal wants statements from both of you, and there's the question of the land, the stolen properties. It can wait, Cole said firmly. Give us today. The judge nodded and retreated. Cole led Selena back into the cabin, away from curious eyes. She sat at the table, staring at her hands. Everything's changed, she said. Hawthorne's gone. The threat's over. We don't have to pretend anymore. Cole's chest tightened. Is that what we were doing? Pretending? Weren't we? A marriage forced by circumstance, maintained for survival? Is that all it was to you? She looked up at him, her dark eyes searching. What was it to you? Cole sat across from her, choosing his words carefully. At first, a disaster. My own stupidity coming home to roost. But then I got to know you. Your strength, your intelligence, your grace under pressure. The way you stood by me when you had every reason to leave. The way you saved my life. You saved mine too. From poverty, from Hawthorne. No, Cole interrupted. You saved yourself. You would have found a way with or without me. You're a fighter, Selena. It's one of the things He paused, then forged ahead. One of the things I love about you. The word hung between them like a physical presence. Selena's eyes widened. You can't mean that. Why not? Because you were forced into this. Because I'm colored and you're white. Because nothing. Cole reached across the table, taking her hands. I know exactly who you are, Selena Carter Matthews. I know you talk to plants in the garden like they're old friends. I know you hum spirituals when you think no one's listening. I know you read Marcus's books by candlelight because you're hungry for knowledge. I know you're brave and brilliant and beautiful, and I know that somewhere between that forced wedding and now I fell in love with you. Cole, tears were flowing down her cheeks again. You don't have to love me back. When the divorce papers are filed, I'll sign them. You're free to go wherever you want, be whoever you want, but you deserve to know the truth. I love you, Selena, not because I have to, but because I choose to. She pulled her hands free and stood, pacing to the window. You don't understand what you're saying. The life you'd have, married to me by choice, the children we might have, would be beautiful and strong like their mother, would be outcasts like their mother. She spun to face him. Neither white nor black belonging nowhere. They'd belong here, on this land, in this town that we helped save, this town that barely tolerates me now, this town that just stood with us against Hawthorne. Did you see their faces, Selena? Not all of them, sure, but enough. Things are changing. Not fast enough. Not in our lifetime. Then we keep fighting. Together. He stood, moving toward her slowly, giving her time to retreat. Unless you don't feel the same. If this is just obligation for you, I'll understand. Selena laughed, but it was broken, tearful. Just obligation? Cole Matthews, you beautiful fool. I've been in love with you since you taught me to shoot. Since you buried Shadow and let me see you cry. Since you stood up to Hawthorne knowing it might cost you everything. Then why? Because I've already buried one husband. The words exploded from her. Because I know what it's like to lose everything. Because loving you, really loving you, means risking that pain again. Cole reached out, gently cupping her face. And not loving me? What does that mean? Safety, she whispered. And emptiness. I can't promise you forever. No one can. But I can promise you this. Every day I have left, I'll spend trying to be worthy of you. You already are, she said, and then she was kissing him. It was nothing like their wedding kiss. This was fire and need, and two souls recognizing each other across all the barriers the world had tried to put between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "So what now?" Selena asked. "Now we decide. Together. Do we stay married, really married? Do we build a life here? Do we face whatever comes?" She looked around the cabin, their cabin, and out at the land beyond. "This place needs work. The fence is still broken. The garden needs tending. We lost half the cattle. We have enough to start over. And with Hawthorne's stolen land being returned to rightful owners, there might be opportunities." "The Petersons will get their farm back," Selena mused. "The Chens can actually own their laundry instead of renting. Things really could change, with the right people pushing for it." She looked at him, a smile slowly spreading across her face. "You're talking about more than ranching." "Maybe. Town needs better leadership, honest law enforcement, fair banking. And you think a mixed couple could help with that?" "I think a smart, brave couple who stood up to tyranny might have earned some respect, enough to make a difference." "It won't be easy." "Nothing worthwhile ever is." Selena moved back into his arms, resting her head against his chest. "Marcus would have liked you. He always said the future belonged to people who could see beyond color to character. He sounds like he was a wise man." "He was. And I think he'd want me to be happy. To love again." "Are you happy?" She pulled back to look at him. "Standing in a broken-down cabin with a man who lost me in a poker game, facing an uncertain future in a town that barely accepts us?" "Yes. Somehow, impossibly, yes." Cole kissed her again, soft and sweet this time. "Then let's tell the marshal we're staying married. Make it official in the eyes of the law, not just necessity." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They spent the rest of the day giving statements to the marshal, learning the full extent of Hawthorne's crimes. The list was staggering: 37 forged deeds, 12 suspicious deaths including Marcus's, hundreds of thousands in stolen money. He would hang for certain. Snake Wilson's death was ruled self-defense without question, especially after several witnesses came forward about his history of violence. The marshal seemed impressed by Selena's marksmanship. "You taught her well," he told Cole. "She's a natural," Cole replied, pride evident in his voice. As the sun set, the town organized an impromptu celebration in the street. Tables appeared from nowhere, laden with food. Someone brought out a fiddle, then a guitar. Music filled the air, tentative at first, then growing stronger. Cole and Selena stood on the edge of the gathering, uncertain of their welcome. Then Mrs. Chen approached, taking Selena's hands. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." Others followed. The Petersons, tears in their eyes as they thanked them for helping get their farm back. Rodriguez and his miners, promising to help rebuild the damaged ranch. Even Sheriff Thompson, shame-faced but sincere. "I failed this town," he said. "Failed you both. But if you'll have me, I'd like to start making amends." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Selena said graciously. Tom brought them drinks, his one arm managing to balance 3 glasses with practiced ease. "To the couple who saved Cheyenne Creek," he toasted. "May your marriage be as strong as your courage." "It was forced on us," Cole reminded him. "The beginning, maybe. But what you choose to make of it, that's all you." As the evening wore on, something remarkable happened. The invisible lines that had divided the town, white from Mexican, from Chinese from black, began to blur. Children played together while their parents talked. Stories were shared, food exchanged, friendships tentatively begun. "Look what you started," Cole murmured to Selena. "We started," she corrected, "together." Judge Morrison approached, looking years younger despite his exhaustion. "I've been thinking about what comes next. The town will need rebuilding, not just buildings but trust. Laws need rewriting, economic structures need changing." "You have plans?" Selena asked. "Ideas. But they'll need support, strong voices advocating for fairness." He looked between them meaningfully. "Interested? A colored woman helping write laws. Selena's tone was skeptical. A brilliant legal mind helping create justice, the judge corrected. Your father taught you well. Don't let his knowledge die with him. And me? Cole asked. The town needs a new mayor. Someone honest, who's proven they'll stand up for what's right. I'm a rancher. You're a leader. You proved that these past weeks. They promised to think about it, but Cole could see the spark in Selena's eyes. The possibility of real change, of building something better from Hawthorne's ashes. As the celebration continued around them, they slipped away, walking back to their ranch under a canopy of stars. The cabin looked different in the moonlight, not broken anymore, but ready for renewal. We'll need to add rooms, Selena said suddenly. Rooms? For children. Eventually. Cole's heart skipped. Children? If you want them, despite the challenges they'll face, because of the strength they'll have. With you as their mother, they'll be unstoppable. She laughed, the sound bright in the darkness. We're really doing this? Building a life together? We already have been. We just didn't realize it. Inside the cabin, they stood together in the dim lamplight. The bed in the corner, the one Cole had given her that first night, seemed to mock their previous arrangement. You don't have to sleep in the barn anymore, Selena said softly. Are you sure? We're married, aren't we? Really married now? Yes, Cole said, wonder in his voice. We really are. That night, they came together not as strangers forced by circumstance, but as two people who'd found love in the most unlikely place. Their joining was tender and passionate by turns, a claiming and a surrender, a promise made with bodies as well as words. Afterward, they lay entwined, Selena's head on Cole's chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her back. I love you, he said, still marveling that he could say it freely. I love you too, she replied. Despite everything, because of everything, tomorrow will bring challenges. Then we'll face them. Together? Together. The next morning brought the first of many challenges, but also unexpected joys. The Petersons arrived with lumber to repair the cabin. The Chens brought chickens to replace the poisoned ones. Rodriguez and his men began work on a new barn. We take care of our own, Rodriguez said when Cole protested. And you're our own now. Over the following weeks, the town transformed. Hawthorne's trial was swift, his hanging swifter. His assets were divided among those he'd cheated. Cole and Selena suddenly found themselves with clear title to their lands and enough money to expand. But more importantly, they found themselves at the center of a community reborn. Selena began working with Judge Morrison on new town ordinances protecting all citizens, regardless of race. Cole accepted the position of mayor, winning in an election that saw record turnout. Their first act was to establish a school that would accept all children. Their second was to create a town council with representatives from every community. Change came slowly, sometimes painfully, but it came. One evening, 3 months after Hawthorne's defeat, Cole came home to find Selena in the garden, her hands deep in soil, humming one of her spirituals. The setting sun caught her face, and he was struck again by her beauty, not just physical, but the beauty of her spirit. You're staring, she said without looking up. Can't help it. My wife is beautiful. She smiled, standing and dusting off her hands. Your wife has news. Oh. She took his hand, placing it on her still flat stomach. We're going to need those extra rooms sooner than planned. Cole's knees nearly buckled. We're going to have a baby. Come spring. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed. A baby. You're not worried about what we discussed? I'm terrified, he admitted, setting her down gently. But I'm also happier than I've ever been. Our child, Selena. Ours. The town might not accept. The town will learn. We'll teach them, like we've been teaching them. He cupped her face. This child will be loved, protected, cherished. By us, by this community we're building. Promise? Promise. As if to seal it, thunder rumbled overhead. The drought that had plagued the region for months was finally breaking. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, washing the dust from the air. They stood in their garden, rain soaking through their clothes, and laughed. It felt like a benediction, a blessing on their unlikely love. "From a lost poker game to this," Cole said, water streaming down his face. "The best loss you ever had," Selena teased. "The best win," he corrected, pulling her close. "The very best win." Later, warm and dry inside their cabin, they planned for the future. The baby, the ranch expansion, the new school building, the legal reforms Selena was drafting. It was ambitious, perhaps impossible, but they'd already achieved the impossible once. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't sat down at that poker table?" Selena asked as they prepared for bed. "Every day. And every day I'm grateful I did. Even with everything we went through? Especially because of that. It brought me you." She kissed him, soft and sweet. "Marcus used to say everything happens for a reason. I didn't believe him then. And now? Now I think maybe he was right. Maybe we were meant to find each other, even if the path was painful. Maybe we were meant to change this place," Cole added. "Together." "Together," she agreed. Outside, the rain continued to fall, nourishing the dry earth, bringing life back to the land. Inside, Cole and Selena held each other, their love a flame that had been forged in adversity and emerged stronger for it. The lamp flickered and went out, leaving them in darkness punctuated by lightning. But they weren't afraid. They had each other, and that was light enough. "I love you, Mrs. Matthews," Cole whispered into the darkness. "And I love you, Mr. Matthews," she whispered back. Thunder rolled across the prairie, and with it came the promise of new growth, new life, new possibilities. The forced marriage that had begun as a punishment had become a partnership. The partnership had become love, and that love would reshape not just their lives, but the life of an entire town. In the morning, they would rise and continue their work. There would be setbacks, prejudice, moments of doubt, but there would also be triumphs, acceptance, and joy. They would raise children who knew no limits to what they could achieve. They would build a legacy of justice and equality that would outlast them both. But tonight they simply held each other, two souls who'd found home in the most unlikely place, each other's arms. The rain drummed on the roof like a celebration, like hope itself given sound. And in that small cabin on the Wyoming prairie, love bloomed like a flower in the desert, unexpected, resilient, and absolutely beautiful. Yu Fun Sao. Louis Traloi Trong Muk Tin Yun Kom Nye Sang document edit. The morning after the rain brought unexpected visitors. Cole was repairing the chicken coop when he saw the wagon approaching, loaded with furniture and followed by two more wagons full of people. As they drew closer, he recognized several families from town, but it was the man driving the lead wagon who made him call for Selena. "That's Benjamin Morrison," he said as she emerged from the cabin, flour dusting her apron. "The judge's son. The same son who'd ridden with Hawthorne's night riders, who'd shot at their cabin." Cole's hand moved instinctively to his gun, but Selena touched his arm. "Let's hear what he has to say." Benjamin stopped the wagon 20 feet away and climbed down slowly, his hands visible and empty. He was young, maybe 22, with his father's intelligent eyes, but shadowed with something darker, shame, perhaps, or regret. "Mr. Matthews. Mrs. Matthews." He removed his hat, crushing it between his hands. "I've come to apologize, and to ask for something I don't deserve." "You shot at our home," Cole said flatly. "I did. I was drunk and stupid and thought I was proving something to men who didn't give a damn about me." Benjamin's voice cracked. "My father told me what you did, how you saved him from Hawthorne, saved the whole town, after everything I did." "What do you want?" Selena asked, her tone neutral but not unkind. "A chance to make amends. These folks," he gestured to the wagons, "they're new arrivals, freed slaves from Mississippi, heading west for a new start. They heard about what happened here, about a town where a colored woman helped write the laws. They want to settle, but—" He paused, struggling. "But nobody will sell to them. Nobody except maybe you." Cole and Selena exchanged glances. Their expanded land holdings, courtesy of Hawthorne's seized assets, included several parcels suitable for homesteading. "Why are you helping them?" Cole asked Benjamin. "Because I need to do something right. Because my father says redemption comes through action, not words. Because he looked directly at Selena. Because I need to prove that not all white folks are like Hawthorne, or like I was. An older black man stepped down from the second wagon. His hair was gray, his back bent from years of labor, but his eyes were sharp and proud. "Name's Ezekiel Washington," he said. "This here's my family and some others who traveled with us. We got money saved, can pay fair price for land. We're not asking for charity." "How many families?" Selena asked. 6. 32 souls total, including children. "Can you farm?" "Ranch? Been farming other people's land all my life," Ezekiel said with bitter humor. "Reckon I can figure out how to farm my own." Selena looked at the wagons, at the faces peering out, men, women, children, all wearing expressions of desperate hope mixed with prepared disappointment. She knew that look. She'd worn it herself. "The Henderson Valley parcels," she said to Cole, 40 acres each with water access. "That's good land," Cole said, but he was already nodding. "Fair price would be $200 per parcel." "We can do $150, Ezekiel said, then caught himself. "Sorry, didn't mean to haggle if you're being generous." "You're not haggling, you're negotiating," Selena smiled. "Like any land buyer should, $175 and we'll throw in seed for the first planting." "Deal," Ezekiel said quickly, as if afraid they might change their minds. "I'll draw up the papers," Benjamin offered. "Legal and proper. If you'll trust me to do it." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Selena said, looking at him steadily. "Don't waste yours." As the new settlers began unloading their wagons on what would be their land, word spread quickly through town. By afternoon, a small crowd had gathered at Cole and Selena's ranch, some curious, some hostile, some supportive. "You're changing everything," Mrs. Peterson said, not entirely approvingly. "Everything needs changing," Selena replied calmly, "but so many of them all at once." 6 families, Mrs. Peterson. Families who want the same thing you wanted when you came here, a chance to build something. Sheriff Thompson arrived, his face grim. "There's talk in town. Some folks aren't happy about this." "Some folks weren't happy when the Chinese came either," Cole pointed out. "Or the Mexicans. But the town survived. This is different." "Why?" "Because they're colored?" Thompson shifted uncomfortably. "I'm just warning you. There might be trouble." "Then you'll do your job and stop it," Selena said firmly. "That's why we have law." That evening, as they helped the new families set up temporary shelters, trouble arrived in the form of Carl Bradley and a dozen other men. Carl's father had been one of Hawthorne's victims, but apparently that hadn't taught Carl any sympathy for other underdogs. "You can't do this," Carl said, his hand resting on his gun. "Selling good land to—" "Careful," Cole warned, stepping forward. "Choose your next words very carefully." "To people who don't belong here," Carl finished, though it clearly wasn't what he'd planned to say. "I didn't belong here once," Rodriguez said, appearing with several of his miners. "Neither did Mr. Chen. Or the Petersons when they were newcomers. Who decides who belongs?" "It's different. It's exactly the same," Judge Morrison said, arriving with Benjamin. "The law says any citizen can own land. These people are citizens." "Barely," someone muttered. "The 14th Amendment says otherwise," Selena said, her voice carrying clearly. "Would you like me to recite it for you?" "I know it by heart." "This will bring trouble," Carl insisted. "Other towns won't trade with us. We'll be outcasts." "We were already outcasts when Hawthorne ran things," Tom pointed out, having arrived with several others. "At least now we're outcasts with principles." The confrontation might have escalated, but then something unexpected happened. Ezekiel's granddaughter, a girl of maybe 6, approached Carl with a handful of wildflowers. "For you, mister," she said shyly. "Mama says giving flowers makes people less angry." Carl stared at the child, at her innocent face and hopeful eyes, and something in his expression cracked. He took the flowers awkwardly. "We're not leaving," Ezekiel said quietly. "We've got legal deeds, bought fair and square. We'll be good neighbors, contribute to the town, follow the laws. All we want is a chance." "That's all any of us want," Cole added. Carl looked around at the mixed crowd, white, Mexican, Chinese, and now black faces all watching him. He looked at the flowers in his hand, at the child who'd given them to him. "If there's any trouble," he said finally, "it won't come from me." He turned to his followers. "Anyone who wants to fight about this can do it without me. I've seen enough fighting." He left, still carrying the flowers, and slowly his group dispersed. The tension didn't disappear entirely, but it eased. Over the next weeks, the new families worked to establish their homesteads with a determination that impressed even skeptics. They helped each other with barn raisings, shared tools and knowledge, and slowly began integrating into the community's rhythm. Selena spent her mornings helping them navigate legal requirements and her afternoons working with Judge Morrison on broader legal reforms. Her pregnancy was beginning to show now, and Cole watched with protective concern as she pushed herself. "You need to rest," he said one evening after she'd spent all day mediating a dispute over water rights. "I need to make sure these laws are ironclad before the baby comes," she replied, hand on her growing belly. "This child will inherit the world we build now. Our child will inherit your stubbornness, clearly, and your impulsiveness. Heaven help us." But she was smiling as she said it, and when Cole pulled her into his lap, she didn't resist. These quiet moments together had become precious, islands of peace in their increasingly busy lives. A month later, the first test of their new community came when riders from a neighboring town arrived, led by a man named Watson, who owned the largest ranch in the county. "Heard you've got a situation here," Watson said, addressing Cole but pointedly ignoring Selena. "Thought you might need help clearing it up." "What situation would that be?" Cole asked evenly. "Colored homesteaders. Mixed marriage." Watson spit tobacco juice dangerously close to Selena's feet. "Things that bring down property values." "Our property values are fine," Sheriff Thompson said, having appeared with several deputies. "As is our peace, which you're disturbing. Just offering neighborly assistance." "We don't need it," Ezekiel said, standing with his sons and the other new homesteaders. "We're already neighbors here." Watson's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake, Matthews. This kind of integration, it's not natural. It'll tear your town apart." "The only thing that tears towns apart is hatred," Selena said, speaking for the first time. "And we've had enough of that." "A colored woman lecturing me?" Watson laughed unpleasantly. "This is what you've come to." "This is what we've risen to," Cole corrected. "Now get off our land." Watson looked around at the unified front, white, brown, black faces all standing together, and his bravado faltered. "You'll regret this," he said, but it sounded more like fear than threat. "When the territory becomes a state, when real civilization comes, we'll be ready," Judge Morrison said, "with laws that protect all citizens, regardless of color. In fact, I'm submitting our town charter as a model for state consideration." Watson left with his men, but everyone knew it wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more tests. But something had shifted in the town's foundation. They were no longer separate communities happening to share space. They were becoming one community, forged by shared struggle. That evening, the town held its first integrated town meeting. The schoolhouse was packed, with people standing along the walls and spilling out onto the porch. The main topic was the upcoming Harvest Festival, but the real significance was simpler. Everyone was there. "We need to elect a planning committee," Cole said from his position as mayor. "Volunteers?" Hands raised throughout the room. Mrs. Chen, Rodriguez, Ezekiel's wife Ruth, Mrs. Peterson. A year ago, such a mixed committee would have been unthinkable. Now it seemed natural. As the meeting progressed, Selena felt a sharp pain in her side. She gasped quietly, her hand going to her belly. Cole was beside her instantly. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. It's too early." Another pain, stronger this time. Dr. Harrison, the town's elderly physician, pushed through the crowd. He'd been one of the few to treat all patients regardless of race, even under Hawthorne's rule, and his expertise was unquestioned. "Let me examine her," he said, then more firmly to the crowd. "Give us space." Someone fetch my bag from the office. The next hours were a blur of pain and fear. Selena was indeed in early labor, the baby coming 2 months before its time. The doctor worked frantically, aided by Mrs. Chen and Ruth Washington, both experienced midwives. Cole paced outside the cabin like a caged animal, prevented from entering by Doc Harrison's firm orders. The entire town seemed to have gathered in their yard, keeping vigil. "She's strong," Tom said, trying to comfort him. The baby's too early. Cole's voice was raw with fear. If I lose them, you won't, Benjamin Morrison said firmly. He'd become a regular presence since the land sales, working to earn forgiveness through service. Mrs. Matthews is the strongest person in this town. She'll fight. Inside, Selena was indeed fighting, though each contraction felt like it might tear her apart. The baby was coming whether ready or not, and all she could do was push through the pain and pray. That's it, Doc Harrison encouraged. You're doing fine. Baby's positioned well. Too small, Selena gasped between contractions. We'll be too small. We'll handle whatever comes, Ruth said firmly, wiping Selena's forehead. You just focus on bringing this child into the world. The final push came with a scream that carried across the yard, followed by a silence that stopped every heart. Then, a cry. Weak and thin, but unmistakably alive. It's a girl, Doc Harrison announced, and a cheer went up from outside. But inside, the celebration was muted. The baby was tiny, struggling to breathe, her skin tinged blue. She needs warmth, constant care, the doctor said quietly to Cole, who'd finally been allowed in. The next few days will be critical. Cole looked at his daughter, their daughter, so small she fit in his two hands. Her skin was lighter than Selena's but darker than his, marking her clearly as mixed race. In another place, another time, that might doom her. But here, now. She's perfect, he whispered. Hope, Selena said weakly from the bed. Her name is Hope, because that's what she is. The town rallied around them in ways that would have been unimaginable months before. The Chinese families brought traditional medicines. The Mexican women organized round-the-clock care rotations. The white families donated blankets and supplies. Even Carl Bradley arrived with fresh milk from his best cow. For 3 days, Hope struggled. Her breathing was labored, her cry weak. Doc Harrison barely left the cabin, catching catnaps in a chair. On the third night, her breathing worsened dramatically. We might lose her, the doctor said quietly. No, Selena said fiercely, holding her daughter against her chest, skin to skin as Ruth had suggested. She's a fighter. Like her father. Like me. Cole wrapped his arms around both of them, adding his warmth, his strength, his desperate love. Stay with us, little one. Please. Through that long night, the town kept vigil. Candles appeared in windows. Prayers were offered in multiple languages and traditions. It was as if the entire community held its breath, waiting. As dawn broke, Hope's breathing suddenly eased. Her color improved. She opened her eyes, dark like her mother's, and looked directly at Cole with what he swore was recognition. Well, I'll be damned, Doc Harrison said, exhausted but smiling. Pardon my language, but that's one strong little girl. Gets it from her mother, Cole said, kissing Selena's temple. Gets it from both of us, Selena corrected. We're both fighters. Hope's survival became legendary in the town, a symbol of what was possible when people came together. She was, in many ways, the town's child, watched over by dozens of honorary aunts and uncles of every color and creed. As she grew stronger over the following weeks, so did the community bonds. The Harvest Festival that year was the most integrated and joyful the town had ever seen. Foods from different cultures shared tables. Music blended traditions. Children played together without regard for the differences their parents were still learning to overcome. Watson returned once more with a larger group, including some territorial officials. They came prepared to find a town in chaos, overwhelmed by racial tension. Instead, they found prosperity. The new homesteaders' crops were thriving. The town's businesses were booming with increased population and trade. The school had more students than ever. Most surprisingly, crime had dropped to almost nothing. How? Watson demanded of Cole. How is this working? Because we're not fighting each other anymore, Cole said simply. All that energy that used to go into hatred and division, now it goes into building. One of the territorial officials, a man named Garrett, seemed genuinely interested. Your wife helped write these new laws? She did. She's got a better legal mind than most lawyers I've known. I'd like to meet her. Selena received them in the cabin, Hope nursing at her breast with no regard for propriety. If the officials were shocked by her casual motherhood, they didn't show it. These provisions for equal protection, Garrett said, reviewing the town charter. They're more progressive than anything in the territory. Progress is the point, Selena said. We can't change the past, but we can build a better future. And it's working? See for yourself. Walk our streets, talk to our people, all our people. The officials spent 2 days in town, observing, questioning, listening. They saw Rodriguez's miners working alongside Ezekiel's sons. They saw Mrs. Chen teaching Chinese herbs to Ruth Washington. They saw white and black children learning together in the schoolhouse. It shouldn't work, Watson said desperately on the last day. It goes against nature. Hatred goes against nature. Little Hope chose that moment to cry, and Selena soothed her with practiced ease. Love and community are what we're meant for. The officials left with copies of the town charter and a recommendation that it be considered for broader territorial adoption. Watson left with his tail between his legs, his last threat of consequences ringing hollow. That night, as Cole and Selena lay in bed with Hope between them, they marveled at how far they'd come. "A year ago I was a widow with nothing," Selena said softly. "A year ago I was a fool who sat down at the wrong poker table." "The right poker table," Selena corrected. "It brought us together." "It brought us everything," Cole agreed, touching Hope's tiny hand. The baby gripped his finger with surprising strength. "She'll grow up in a different world than we did," Selena said. "A better one. Because we're making it better. Because we're making it together." A knock at the door interrupted them. Cole grabbed his gun out of habit, but it was just Tom with news. "Telegram from the capital," he said excitedly. "The governor wants to visit. He's heard about our experiment in integration and wants to see it himself." "When?" Cole asked. "Next month." After Tom left, Cole and Selena looked at each other with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. A governor's endorsement could protect them from future Watsons and Hawthorns, but it could also bring scrutiny they weren't ready for. "We'll face it like we've faced everything else," Selena said, reading his thoughts. "Together? Always together." The preparation for the governor's visit consumed the next weeks. The town worked to put its best face forward. Buildings were painted, streets cleaned, preparations made for a celebration that would showcase their unity. But 3 days before the governor's arrival, disaster struck. Fire broke out in the granary, spreading quickly to nearby buildings. The flames threatened to consume the entire east side of town where many of the new homesteaders lived. Cole organized the firefighting efforts, but it was Selena who noticed the real problem. "The wind's shifting. It's going to jump to the Chinese Quarter." "Then we stop it there," Cole said grimly. What followed was the town's finest hour. Every able-bodied person joined the bucket brigade. Property lines meant nothing. Race meant nothing. Only saving their community mattered. Ezekiel and his sons worked alongside Carl Bradley to tear down a shed that could spread the fire. Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Peterson coordinated the evacuation of children. Rodriguez's miners used dynamite to create a fire break. When the fire was finally contained, half the eastern district was destroyed. But no lives were lost, and the rest of the town was saved. As dawn broke over the smoky ruins, people stood together, exhausted, covered in soot that made race invisible. "We rebuild," Ezekiel said simply, looking at his partially burned home. "We rebuild together," Cole amended, and no one disagreed. The governor arrived to find the town in organized chaos, rebuilding efforts in full swing, everyone working side by side. Governor Campbell was a pragmatist, more interested in results than ideology, and what he saw impressed him. "This is remarkable," he told Cole and Selena as they toured the damage and rebuilding. "The cooperation, the organization." "It's survival," Selena said, hope secure in a sling across her chest. "We survive together or not at all." "Your town charter, Mrs. Matthews. I've read it. It's revolutionary. It's necessary." The governor stopped, studying them. The white rancher, his black wife, their mixed-race child. "You know there'll be resistance if we implement this territory-wide." Significant resistance. "There was resistance here too," Cole said. "We overcame it." "How?" "By refusing to give up," Selena said. "By believing we could be better than our worst impulses." "And by standing together when it mattered," Cole added. The governor's visit culminated in a town meeting where he announced his support for adopting elements of their charter territory wide. The celebration was subdued. Too much work remained on rebuilding, but the significance wasn't lost on anyone. "We did it," Benjamin Morrison said to Cole and Selena. "We actually changed things." "We started to change things," Selena corrected. "The real work is just beginning." That night, as they worked late into the evening on rebuilding plans, Hope began crying. But it wasn't her usual cry. This was different, frightened. "She's burning up," Selena said, fear creeping into her voice. Doc Harrison came quickly, his face grave as he examined the baby. "It's fever. Could be anything. The smoke from the fire, exhaustion from the chaos, or something worse. How do we treat it? Keep her cool, hydrated, watch her carefully, and pray." The next 3 days were agony. Hope's fever raged despite everything they tried. The town once again rallied. Remedies arrived from every culture. Prayers were offered in every faith, but the baby grew weaker. On the third night, delirious with exhaustion and fear, Selena held her daughter and sang the spirituals her mother had sung to her. Cole wrapped them both in his arms, adding his off-key voice to hers. "Don't take her," Selena whispered to the darkness. "Please. She's meant for more than this. She's meant to see the world we're building." Whether it was the songs, the prayers, the remedies, or just Hope's inherited stubbornness, the fever broke just before dawn. The baby's breathing eased. Her color returned. "2 close calls in as many months," Doc Harrison said, exhausted but relieved. "This little one's going to give you gray hair before your time." "Worth it," Cole said, cradling his daughter, while Selena finally slept. "So worth it." The recovery from Hope's second brush with death marked a turning point not just for the Matthews family, but for the entire town. As autumn deepened into winter, the rebuilt Eastern District stood as testament to what they could accomplish together. But Cole knew that external threats hadn't disappeared. They'd simply been waiting for the right moment to strike back. That moment came on a bitter December morning when Cole found a letter nailed to his door, the paper crackling with frost. The message was brief but chilling. "The Association of Concerned Citizens demands the immediate dissolution of your illegal integration experiment. You have 30 days to comply, or we will take necessary action." "Who are the Association of Concerned Citizens?" Selena asked, reading over his shoulder while Hope nursed contentedly at her breast. "Nobody good," Cole said grimly. "This has Watson's stink all over it." 3 days later, they learned the full scope of the threat. Judge Morrison arrived at their ranch with a stack of legal documents and a face pale with worry. "They're challenging everything," he said, spreading papers across their kitchen table. "The land sales to the freedmen, the integrated school, even your marriage. They claim it's all illegal under territorial law." "How can our marriage be illegal?" Selena demanded. "We were married by a minister with witnesses." They're citing an old territorial statute from 1867 that was never formally repealed. It prohibits interracial marriages. The judge's voice was heavy with disgust. "No one's enforced it in years, but technically, they could have us arrested," Cole finished. "Declare Hope illegitimate." "Take her away." Selena's arms tightened around their daughter. "Put her in an orphanage or worse." "Over my dead body," Cole said flatly. "That might be their plan," the judge warned. "Watson's gathered support from 5 neighboring towns. They're calling it a moral crusade to preserve the natural order. They've even got a judge from Laramie who's willing to hear their case." "Then we fight it," Selena said, her legal mind already working. "The 14th Amendment supersedes territorial law. Equal protection under law means nothing if the wrong judge interprets it," Morrison interrupted gently. "And Judge Brennan is definitely the wrong judge. He's made his views on race mixing clear in previous rulings." Cole stood and paced to the window, looking out at the land they'd fought so hard to protect. The morning sun caught the frost on the grasslands, turning everything to diamonds. So beautiful, so fragile. "What do you recommend?" he asked without turning. "Governor Campbell supports us, but his hands are tied by the law. He suggested, the judge paused, clearly uncomfortable. "He's suggested you temporarily relocate, just until we can get better legislation passed." Run? Selena's voice was sharp with indignation. After everything we've built? Strategic retreat, Morrison corrected. Live to fight another day. If we run, everyone who stood with us becomes a target, Cole said. The Washingtons, the Chens, Rodriguez's people. We'd be abandoning them. You'd be protecting hope, the judge said quietly. That silenced them all. Cole turned to see Selena looking down at their daughter, who had finished nursing and was gazing up at her mother with those impossibly dark eyes. The weight of parenthood, of choosing between principles and protection, had never felt heavier. 27 days, Selena said finally. We have 27 days to find another way. Selena, I won't run, Cole, and I won't let them take her. We'll find another way. The next morning brought unexpected allies. An elegant carriage arrived, out of place on the rough ranch road. From it stepped a woman in expensive clothes that couldn't hide her mixed-race heritage, light enough to sometimes pass for white, but with features that spoke of African ancestry. Mrs. Matthews? She addressed Selena formally. My name is Isabella Thornwood. I believe we should talk. Over tea, Isabella revealed her story. Born into slavery, freed during the war, educated in the North, and married to a white railroad magnate who died 2 years prior. She'd been fighting integration battles in Chicago and had heard about their situation. You have something they don't expect, Isabella said, a unified community. I've seen what you've built here. It's remarkable. It won't matter if the law stands against us, Selena said. Then we change the law. Or more precisely, we use the law against itself. Isabella smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. Did you know that Judge Brennan, who's supposed to hear your case, has a son? A son who's been passing for white in Denver society? A son whose mother was a quadroon from New Orleans? Cole and Selena exchanged glances. Blackmail? Cole asked. Insurance, Isabella corrected. Sometimes you must use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house, but that's just one piece. The real battle will be public opinion. How do we win that? By showing them who you really are. All of you. The entire town. What followed was a carefully orchestrated campaign that would have impressed even Hawthorne with its complexity. Isabella brought in a journalist from Harper's Weekly, a man named Theodore Marsh, who specialized in Western stories. But instead of focusing on the controversy, he wrote about daily life in the integrated town. He wrote about Ruth Washington teaching Mrs. Peterson to make sweet potato pie, about Chinese children and Mexican children playing together in the snow, about Benjamin Morrison working alongside Ezekiel's sons to rebuild the schoolhouse. He wrote about hope, the baby whose very existence embodied the town's future. You're romanticizing it, Watson accused when he confronted Cole in town. This isn't real. It's a fantasy that'll collapse the moment pressure's applied. Then apply it, Cole challenged. See what happens. Watson's smile was cold. Oh, we will. The pressure came 2 nights later. Riders in the dark, but not just a few, dozens of them, faces hidden behind masks, torches casting dancing shadows. They surrounded the ranch, and their leader's voice boomed across the frozen ground. Cole Matthews! Send out the woman and child, and you can leave peacefully. This abomination ends tonight. Cole stood in the doorway, rifle ready. You'll have to come through me. So be it. But before violence could erupt, other sounds filled the night. Wagons, horses, footsteps. The townspeople were coming, all of them. They formed a protective circle around the ranch, armed not just with guns, but with determination. You want them. You take all of us, Ezekiel said, his sons flanking him with rifles. This isn't your fight, boy, the masked leader snarled. Every fight for justice is our fight, Rodriguez added, his miners spreading out strategically. You people don't understand what you're protecting, another masked figure called out. It's unnatural. Love is unnatural? Mrs. Chen stepped forward, tiny but fierce. Family is unnatural? Community is unnatural? Race mixing. Made this country. Isabella Thornwood's voice cut through the night as she emerged from the crowd, and even masked, some of the riders recognized her. She was famous in certain circles, her wealth and connections making her dangerous to cross. Every single one of you has mixed blood if you go back far enough. The only question is whether we admit it with honesty or hide behind hatred. This won't stop us, the leader warned, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. They'd expected to terrorize an isolated family, not face an entire armed community. No, but this might, Sheriff Thompson announced, riding up with a federal marshal and a dozen deputies. Threatening federal witnesses is a serious crime. Yeah, that's right. Everyone involved in the Hawthorne investigation is under federal protection. That includes the Matthews family. The riders milled uncertainly. One thing to terrorize locals, another to face federal authority. This isn't over, the leader said finally. No, Selena's voice carried from the doorway where she stood with hope in her arms. It's just beginning. Because every child born in this town will grow up knowing that unity is stronger than division. Every year will grow stronger while you grow weaker, consumed by your own hatred. We've already won, you just don't know it yet. The riders left, their torches disappearing into the darkness like dying stars. The townspeople stayed until dawn, keeping watch, sharing food and warmth, turning a night of potential violence into an impromptu celebration of solidarity. Theodore Marsh wrote it all down, every word, every gesture. His article would run in Harper's with the headline, "The Town That Fought Hate with Hope," and include a photograph that would become iconic, Cole and Selena standing with their daughter, surrounded by faces of every color, all united in protection of their neighbors. But the legal challenge remained. With only 10 days left before the hearing, they received word that Judge Brennan had accelerated the timeline. The hearing would be in 3 days. He knows about his son, Isabella said grimly. Someone warned him. He's trying to rule before we can use that leverage. Then we need something else, Selena said. Something that makes it impossible for him to rule against us without exposing his own prejudice. That something came from an unexpected source. Benjamin Morrison had been quietly investigating the 1867 statute and discovered something crucial. It was never properly ratified, he announced, bursting into their cabin with snow in his hair and triumph in his eyes. The territorial legislature didn't have a quorum when they voted. It's technically invalid. Can you prove it? Already have. The records were in the territorial archives. Dusty, forgotten, but legal. Judge Morrison took the evidence and prepared the case with Selena's help. But they all knew legal technicalities might not be enough if Brennan was determined to rule against them. The day of the hearing, the entire town traveled to Laramie. The courthouse was packed, with crowds spilling onto the streets. Judge Brennan, a thin man with cold eyes and pinched features, looked displeased by the attention. This hearing is to determine the validity of certain arrangements in Cheyenne Creek, he began, his distaste evident. Specifically, the legality of interracial marriage and integrated communities under territorial law. Watson's lawyer, a pompous man named Fitzgerald, presented his case first. He quoted scripture, cited pseudoscience about racial purity, and painted a picture of chaos and degradation. The natural order must be maintained, he concluded, for the good of all races. Then Judge Morrison stood for the defense, but before he could speak, Selena rose. Your Honor, I request permission to speak for myself and my family. Women don't typically address this court. I'm not typical, Selena said simply. As this hearing is specifically about whether my marriage, my child, my community should be allowed to exist, I believe I have the right to speak. Brennan clearly wanted to refuse, but the crowd's murmuring and the presence of journalists made him hesitate. Be brief. Selena moved to the front, hope in her arms. She stood straight and proud, her voice clear and strong. Your Honor, you speak of natural order. I'd like to tell you what's natural. It's natural for people to seek happiness, to build families, to create communities. It's natural to help your neighbor regardless of their color when their barn burns down. It's natural for children to play together before adults teach them they shouldn't. What's unnatural is the hatred you're asking us to codify into law. What's unnatural is telling this child, she lifted hope slightly, that she shouldn't exist. What's unnatural is destroying families and communities that function peacefully and productively because they don't match someone's idea of proper organization. You want to talk about law? Let's talk about law. The 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 guarantees all citizens the same rights to make and enforce contracts, including marriage contracts. And the 1867 territorial statute you're relying on was never legally ratified due to lack of quorum, as these documents prove. She placed Benjamin's evidence before the judge, who looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. But beyond law, Selina continued, let's talk about reality. Our town works. Our businesses thrive. Our children are educated. Our crime is nearly non-existent. We've proven that integration isn't just possible. It's profitable, peaceful, and progressive. The only chaos comes from those who oppose us, not from we who live it. Your Honor, you have a choice. You can side with the past, with fear, division, and hatred. Or you can side with the future, with hope, unity, and progress. You can be remembered as the judge who tried to stop the inevitable tide of human progress, or as the one who recognized that America's strength lies not in its divisions, but in its ability to forge one people from many. Look at my daughter, Your Honor. Look at her and tell me she's illegal. Look at our community and tell us we're wrong for supporting each other. Look at the love between my husband and me and tell us it's unnatural. I dare you. She sat down in absolute silence. Then Isabella Thornwood stood and began clapping slowly. Others joined, first the townspeople, then strangers, until the courthouse rang with applause. Judge Brennan's face was purple with rage, but also with something else. Fear. He could see the tide of public opinion, could see the journalists scribbling furiously, could imagine the headlines if he ruled against them. This court, he said through gritted teeth, finds that the 1867 statute was improperly ratified and therefore invalid. The marriages and land sales in Cheyenne Creek stand as legal. Case dismissed. The celebration that erupted was deafening. Cole caught Selina up in his arms, spinning her in hope as tears streamed down his face. They'd won. Against all odds, they'd won. But Watson wasn't finished. As they exited the courthouse, he blocked their path. This isn't over, he snarled. Legal or not, there are ways to deal with aberrations like you. Is that a threat? Sheriff Thompson asked, hand on his gun. It's a promise. Watson never finished the sentence. A shot rang out, and he crumpled to the ground, blood spreading across his chest. Everyone spun to see who'd fired, and there stood Carl Bradley, smoking gun in hand. He was going for his gun, Carl said calmly. Saw him clear as day. Self-defense. Whether Watson had actually been reaching for his weapon would be debated for years, but several witnesses supported Carl's claim. What mattered more was what Carl said next. I was wrong, he announced to the crowd. About all of it. These people, he gestured to Cole and Selina, they saved our town from Hawthorne. They've made us all richer, not just in money but in spirit. And if anyone else wants to threaten them, they'll answer to me. Watson survived, barely, but his power was broken. The sight of him being carried away, defeated and disgraced, marked the end of organized resistance to Cheyenne Creek's grand experiment. The journey home was triumphant. The entire town traveled as one unit, singing songs that blended traditions, spirituals and folk songs, Mexican ballads and Chinese melodies. Hope, passed from arm to arm, was kissed and blessed by everyone. We did it, Cole said to Selina as they finally reached their ranch. We actually did it. We survived it, Selina corrected. Now we have to live it. Living it meant daily challenges and daily triumphs. It meant teaching Hope to walk on legs that carried the heritage of two races. It meant expanding the school to accommodate children from 3 more freed families who arrived that spring. It meant navigating the complex dynamics of a truly integrated society. Not everything was smooth. There were fights, misunderstandings, cultural clashes. But there was also learning, growth, and gradual understanding. The town developed its own culture, neither white nor black nor brown, but something entirely new. Theodore Marsh returned a year later to do a follow-up story. He found the town thriving beyond anyone's imagination. The integrated school had the highest literacy rates in the territory. The diverse farming techniques had made them more resistant to drought and disease. The combined cultural knowledge had created innovations in everything from medicine to cuisine. It's not utopia, Cole told him as they walked through town. We still have problems, disagreements, challenges. But we face them together, Selena added, now visibly pregnant with their second child. That makes all the difference. The biggest test came when Wyoming applied for statehood. There was pressure to segregate to conform to the standards of other states. Delegations arrived trying to convince them to be reasonable for the good of statehood. The town's response was unanimous. They would enter the Union as they were, or not at all. You're one small town, a territorial official argued. You can't hold up statehood for everyone. We're not holding up anything, Ezekiel said at the town meeting. We're showing what's possible. And if Wyoming won't accept us as we are, maybe we're applying to the wrong union. The comment was somewhat jest, but it sparked serious discussion. Could they exist as an independent entity? The idea was far-fetched, but demonstrated their resolve. In the end, they didn't have to. Governor Campbell, who'd risen to greater prominence partly due to his association with their success, negotiated a compromise. Wyoming would enter the Union with some of the most progressive laws in the nation, including protections for integrated communities. The statehood celebration in Cheyenne Creek was unlike anything the territory had ever seen. People came from hundreds of miles away to witness the town that had changed history. Hope, now 3 years old and walking confidently on sturdy legs, led the parade carrying a banner that read, E pluribus unum, out of many one. Mama, she asked Selena that night, why do some people think we're different? Selena looked at her daughter, skin like café au lait, eyes dark and intelligent, hair a beautiful mixture of textures, and smiled. Because we are different, baby. Everyone is. But different doesn't mean wrong. Different can mean special. Like how? Cole lifted his daughter onto his shoulders. Like how you have your mama's brilliant mind and my stubborn streak. Like how you can sing Chinese lullabies and Mexican folk songs and African spirituals. Like how you belong everywhere because love made you, not just one place or one people. Am I American? Hope asked. You're the most American thing there is, Selena said. A mixture of everything that makes this country great. That night, as they tucked Hope into bed and felt the baby kick in Selena's belly, Cole reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a rigged poker game to this moment of complete contentment. Do you ever regret it? Selena asked, reading his thoughts as she often did now. Regret what? That night, the poker game, how everything started. Cole pulled her close, his hand resting on her pregnant belly. That wasn't how everything started. That was just how we found each other. Everything really started when you walked down that church aisle with your head high, refusing to be broken. When you stood beside me against Hawthorne. When you saved my life and I saved yours. When we chose each other, not because we had to, but because we couldn't imagine choosing anyone else. You've gotten poetic in your old age, Selena teased, but her eyes were bright with tears. You've made me better than I was. We've made each other better. And them, she nodded toward Hope's room and touched her belly. They'll make the world better. A month later, Selena gave birth to their son, Marcus Cole Matthews, named for the past they honored and the future they were building. He was born into a community that celebrated his arrival without questioning his right to exist. The birth was easier than Hope's, and the baby was strong from the start. As Selena held him, surrounded by the extended family of their integrated community, she thought about how different this was from Hope's traumatic early arrival. We've all gotten stronger, Ruth Washington observed, helping with the afterbirth. The whole town, like we're growing into who we were meant to be. The christening was held in the same church where Cole and Selena had been forced to marry 3 years earlier. But now Reverend Phillips spoke with genuine joy, and the congregation was a rainbow of faces, all beaming with shared happiness. This child, the Reverend said, is born not of force or circumstance, but of love that overcame every obstacle. He is testament to the power of unity over division, hope over fear, love over hate. As he sprinkled water on Marcus's head, Hope stood on her tiptoes to watch, fascinated by her baby brother. He's like me, she announced proudly. Different but special. The congregation laughed, and Cole lifted his daughter so she could better see. Just like you, little one. Just like all of us. Following the christening, the town council met to discuss a proposal from Isabella Thornwood, who'd moved to Cheyenne Creek permanently. She wanted to establish a college, the first integrated institution of higher learning in the West. It's ambitious, she admitted. Some would say impossible. But then, so was this town. We'll need teachers, Judge Morrison pointed out. Qualified ones who'll work in an integrated school. I've already received inquiries from professors in Boston and Philadelphia, Isabella replied. Scholars who believe in what we're doing. And we have our own educated people. Selina could teach law. Mr. Chen could teach mathematics. Ezekiel's oldest son just returned from studying agriculture in Kansas. The state won't fund it, someone pointed out. No, but private donors will. I've already raised $30,000. The room fell silent. It was an enormous sum. From who? Cole asked. People who believe the future looks like this room, Isabella said, gesturing at the mixed group. Progressive thinkers, reformers, and yes, some formerly enslaved people who found success and want to give back. The vote was unanimous. Cheyenne Creek would build a college. Construction began that spring, with the entire town contributing labor. The main building rose from the prairie like a promise, its doors wide enough for all who sought knowledge. But not everyone was pleased with their continued success. Letters arrived threatening violence if the college opened. Several professors who'd agreed to teach received warnings. One night, someone tried to burn the construction site, though the fire was quickly controlled. They're getting desperate, Sheriff Thompson observed, investigating the arson. Our success threatens everything they believe. Good, Selina said firmly. Let them be threatened. Let them see their world of hatred crumbling. The college's opening day arrived with both celebration and tension. Students had come from across the territory and beyond. Black, white, Chinese, Mexican, even a few Native Americans who'd heard about the inclusive education offered. Cole stood with Selina as she prepared to teach her first class on constitutional law. She was nervous, adjusting and readjusting her papers. You'll be brilliant, he assured her. I'm teaching law to men who don't think women should even vote, much less teach. Then you'll change their minds, like you changed mine. You weren't that hard to convince, she said with a smile. Maybe not about you, but about everything else. You've been teaching me since the day we met. Hope ran up, now 4 and full of energy. Mama, are you teaching today? Yes, baby. Can I come? When you're older. How much older? Old enough to sit still for an hour. Hope considered this seriously. That might be never. Marcus toddled over, just learning to walk, and Hope took his hand protectively. Come on, Marcus. Let's go watch the horses while Mama teaches people to be smart. As the children wandered off with their Aunt Ruth watching over them, Selina took a deep breath. Ready? Cole asked. For them? Always. She walked into the classroom with the same dignity she'd shown walking down that forced wedding aisle. But now it wasn't defiance holding her head high. It was confidence, purpose, and the knowledge that she belonged here. Cole watched from the doorway as she began her lecture, her voice strong and clear. The students, initially skeptical, gradually leaned forward, caught by her intelligence and passion. By the end of the hour, they were asking questions, engaged and eager. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, a knock came at the door. Cole opened it to find a young mixed-race woman, travel-worn and desperate. Please, she said, I heard about this place. They say you accept everyone. I have nowhere else to go. Behind her stood a white man, clearly her husband, holding a baby that was obviously theirs. We were run out of Texas, the man said. Barely escaped with our lives. We heard Cheyenne Creek was different. Cole and Selina exchanged glances, remembering their own forced beginning. Come in, Selina said warmly. You're safe here. As they settled the exhausted family, feeding them and preparing a place to sleep, Hope watched with serious eyes. Were we like that once? She asked her parents. Scared and alone? Once, Cole admitted, but we found our place. And now we help others find theirs. Yes, Selina said, smoothing her daughter's hair. That's what we do. That's who we are. That night, as Cole and Selina lay in bed with their children sleeping peacefully nearby and their new guests safe under their roof, they marveled at the journey. From a poker game to this, Cole murmured. From disaster to destiny, Selina added. Do you think Marcus would be proud? Your first husband? Selena considered carefully. I think he'd be amazed. His dream was just to own land, to be free. This, she gestured at everything around them, this is beyond what either of us imagined. And we're not done, Cole said. The college is just starting. The town is still growing. Hope and Marcus will take it even further. Further than we can imagine, Selena agreed.